Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast. I'm Kamran.
And I'm Billy.
Billy, what would you say we do here?
Well, we like to dig deep into a bunch of books and shows and movies that we love.
In excruciating detail, right?
In excruciating detail. And we like to talk about things that we like about them, what they make us think, and what we learn from them. And a lot of times we're going to go off topic, but we're going to bring it back in. Basically, it is just two guys hanging out talking about their favorite stuff. And it's not meant to be a replacement for anything. It's meant to be a companion to anything that we're talking about, any shows, any movies, any books that we're talking about. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Hopefully you'll enjoy the show with us.
One final note before we begin the episode. If you would like to support our show, we have a Patreon set up. You can find the link at horsefrogproductions.com. You can also email us with any feedback at contact@horsefrogproductions.com. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description. As we were recording this episode, we realized that Billy had quite a bit to say about the goings on in this episode, particularly since he's Christian and so much is going on at the Believe Expo. Due to this, we ran into about 4 hours of total recording time. So what we've decided to do is we're going to output two versions of this episode. We're going to have a shorter version that stays more on topic and with more concise points directly dealing with what's happening in the episode. We will have a longer cut extended version that has more of Billy's viewpoint on the general way Christianity is presented in this episode and his feelings on the right way to present it. Does that cover it pretty well, you think?
Yeah, thanks for giving me the chance to talk so long about this subject material. It means a lot to me. It's real near and dear to my heart. And we also will have a shorter version of this same episode for you to download as well, so you can avoid some of the longer conversation. But we'd really appreciate it if you'd like to listen to the whole thing. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's important to you, so I think it's important to talk through this stuff. Today, we will be reviewing episode 5 of The Boys, the show on Amazon Prime. As we do before all of these reviews of this show, we will give a warning. This show is intended for a mature audience and has extreme violence and some scenes of sexual misconduct. If these topics upset you, then we do not recommend you continue listening. The episode begins in Havana, Cuba. We see a room where Pop Claw is smoking some weed. A-Train runs in through the window with his typical whoosh. He's going real fast. And this tendency he has to just show up out of nowhere must be quite an adjustment to anybody that's around him consistently. That would scare the crap out of me.
Do you at least get the benefit of like the roaring whoosh, maybe showing before he shows there, possibly? Probably not.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Because he's going faster than the speed of sound.
That's true.
And the sound has to catch up with him, right?
That's true. So he'd arrive, and then you'd hear him arrive.
Mm-hmm. And then all the papers in the room go flying everywhere. And, luckily...
Oh, my gosh. It's going to be a mess living with this guy.
Popclaw is happy to see him. It's been days since she has seen him, and she is really wound up tight. She's emotionally distraught. She wants to know where he's been. He tells her he's been handling business, but everything's okay now. He has some good news. Stillwell is open to them going public. Now, he had used this as a mechanism of manipulating her previously prior to his race with Shockwave. In episode 2, I believe, is where we were discussing this originally.
Yes, talking about we're gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, yeah, she's gonna okay us coming public, and she was talking about having waxed every hair on her body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, threaded her eyebrows. I don't even know what that means. I should have looked that up.
I'm kind of aware of what it is. It's where you get people that apparently by rolling threads across your eyebrow area and bone ridges, I guess it plucks hairs more thoroughly than tweezing does. Okay, so it's like twisted together strands or something they caught up. Okay, something like that. And I guess because it can contour to the forehead and whatnot, they're able to be more precise. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Thank God we're dudes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got some robust eyebrows.
Oh my word! I have to break out the trimmers when I'm cutting my head. Sometimes I'm like, okay, put the guard on and go up a couple times. It's like, all right, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Popclaw
right.
tells A-Train not to lie to
Sorry.
her, and he says, "Hand on a Bible." Puts his hand up.
Hand on the button.
But here's the but. For them to go
Right.
public, she has to come clean with him on who she told about the Compound V. She sits down at the table and she's really having a difficult time with this situation.
Yeah.
He prods her on, telling her, "This is you and me. I mean, we're Bonnie and Clyde, right? Ride or die." This mention of Bonnie and Clyde made me think of the movie The Highwayman on Netflix.
Right.
And have you seen that?
I have not. My father recommended this. He's a huge Costner guy, as am I.
Yeah.
But growing up in McKinney, where we lived, Highway 5 was apparently a road that is historically one that they were known to have fled on several times. So I think they had actually come through that McKinney Fairview area. Now, this may be, of course, just urban legend talk, but I believe there's a lot of, I believe it's actually a proven fact that they actually did kind of flee through our area several times in the area where I grew up.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, a lot of that
Right.
movie takes place up in the Dallas area.
Right.
Mhm.
So then that would make sense. So that would be true then.
Right. Now, the reason I really like this movie, beyond the fact that Kevin Costner and what's his name, Woody
Is that
Harrelson,
Woody Harrelson?
yeah, Woody Harrelson are
Okay.
in it. They're both excellent in their roles.
Absolutely. Okay.
The way they film Bonnie and Clyde, you never see their faces. There's this
Really?
like
Okay.
mystique to them until the very end of the movie.
Huh.
And
Okay.
it's such a good way of showing those characters, because it's just, I don't know, it was a really good intentional decision on their part, and it's definitely
Well, it
worth a
doesn't
watch.
mythologize. Is that correct? Mythologize them? Would that be a correct usage? It doesn't mythologize them that way.
I don't know what the right way to describe that is, but either way,
Now, can we make another on-air correction for your wife's sake about the bowling? Did we talk about this in text? The release.
Okay.
The release.
It is literally
called the release.
Okay, but the act of bowling is
release.
bowling.
I don't know. I think letting go is called the release.
Okay.
It's not called bowling.
Okay.
So when you
okay, but hold on a second. So like, but up until the release, what is the action called? The wind up?
I don't know if the whole thing, the act of bowling consists of the wind up, the release, and what, I mean, is that it? I mean, or whatever other things, is it all, and that equals bowling?
Good question.
X plus Y plus Z equals bowling?
Yeah. I think the intent of calling the entire action bowling is probably still accurate, but the release is literally the release of the ball, right?
That's what I read.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe both are correct.
That could probably, we will err on the side of caution and say they are both correct.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Sorry for the diversion. If you haven't watched The Highwayman, go watch it. Yeah.
Okay.
Popclaw tells him she told some guys about A-Train running the Compound V to the Noodle House. And he just wants to know, what do they have on you? She doesn't tell him. She continues to describe them as a British guy, dark hair, real smug hole. Also, there was a buzz cut French guy, a big black guy with a goatee, and a skinny white kid. She thinks they're all working together. Petite Huey. She starts to break down crying and apologizing. He tells her it's okay and tells her about what he was thinking on the way over to see her. He tells her the story of their first date and how most of his first dates would order a scallop and a bottle of water, but she didn't. She ordered a dark beer, a New York strip steak, and a chocolate chip cheesecake. And they both laugh at this.
I like that characterization. That's a really nice moment between them. She sounds really cool, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He remembers thinking that here is someone that isn't afraid to be happy, and he fell for her right then and there. Tells her he loves her. She tells him that she loves him too. He smiles at her. Then he goes into super speed mode and runs back to her. We see that he has put 2 syringes in each of her arms. She looks at him more in shock than of betrayal, and she asks him why, but the drugs affect her before she can really do anything beyond that, and she just kind of collapses in the chair, and he stands there and watches her die.
Yeah.
Cold-blooded. Cold-blooded.
Can you imagine? Well, let's put a pin in that, but that is cold-blooded.
It is.
Regardless of any circumstances, it is cold-blooded.
Even after he just had told that story too, that makes it even
right. That makes it worse.
Yeah.
It's like everything it can to put her at ease, and then here you go.
Mm-hmm. The next thing we see, he speeds into the control room at Vought Tower where Homelander is waiting for him. A-Train tells Homelander that Popclaw died of a heroin overdose. Homelander says he's sorry to hear that and asks about the Compound V. A-Train confirms that she told some guys about it. Homelander says, no, I mean you. A-Train looks at him without responding. Homelander tells him he knows that A-Train's been shooting it up for weeks and asks if he didn't think Homelander would notice. A-Train assures him that he's done with it. He quit cold turkey. Homelander says, really? Good. He then proceeds to collect his cape, throwing it over the arm of one of the chairs with a flourish before he sits in it. And I don't know what it is about this entire motion, but I really liked it. I've never seen...
Very regal.
Yeah, I've never seen another hero do that I recall, where they do just that motion. And, obviously, when you have a cape, it could probably be problematic sliding around, getting caught, pulling you back. So it makes sense.
I don't know if I can think of no comic movie where I've seen someone with a cape sit down. He may be the first, as far as I know. But I love how he does it, though. I'm like you, there's something real regal about the way he does it.
I'm about to open a can of worms here. Does it count when Batman sits down in the tumbler?
I never think about that because he's already in. He might do that before we just don't see it.
I can't imagine him doing a motion like that before he does.
Yeah, it's because I'm assuming Batman just drops in there some way. I mean, he's always implanted in his devices by other devices, and so I don't see. I'm assuming his cape is some other way there retract. I got no idea what's going on with Batman, dude.
All right,
Batman is Batman.
Don't do it.
No, I'm not going there. Not yet. It's coming.
Homelander tells A-Train that he really screwed up, but he did the right thing by coming to him and that he's proud of him. A-Train thanks Homelander for giving him the chance. Homelander gets up and says, hey, come on. He opens his arms, soliciting a hug from A-Train. A-Train comes over and they embrace each other. And they're still embracing each other, and Homelander tells him that he loves him and that they're family. He'll always be watching over him. Always.
Always.
You think that's a little intimidating?
Dude, I love our comment here. I'll let you ask that question. Finish the question.
Do you think it's as intimidating as a menacing massage?
It could be as or more for me. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm pretty scared by that guy. That guy can crush buildings with his arm. If he could reach his arms around things to do that, he could do that. And this guy's he's wrapping his arms around. It's bad enough him giving the menacing massage. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. They're both pretty scary, but I don't know how to even read that situation because I never know. Homelander is quite hard to read.
He's volatile.
He's extremely volatile.
One moment, he's super charming. He seems like he wants to be. Well, I don't know that I want to say. Yeah. I don't know. I was going to say that he wants to be nice, but I don't know about that. But there was that moment where he did kind of want to talk to Starlight in the hallway that one time, and she just kind of blew him off a little bit because she was tired dealing with her own stuff.
I feel that. Yeah.
But then there's other times where he's just scary. This sociopath.
Oh my word. Yes, absolutely. It's the more that we see him, I think we will get into more of how menacing he is later on.
Yeah. As A-Train is walking out, Homelander reminds him to look for the misplaced Asian girl. A-Train assures him he'll find her. Now, when it comes to A-Train killing Popclaw, do you think that he was doing that to protect her from Homelander, or what other reason could he possibly have?
There's a couple. I mean, he is. That's a really good question, because Homelander is that's the more that we see him, the more I got to wonder how much other people, you worry about him being your boss, watching over your shoulder, kind of deal. How uneasy that would be the more you know him. The other thing is, he's still a junkie. We've talked about this. He exhibits these attitudes where he's, worried about his supply. He's concerned about his number one self. He does. I'm sure he loves her.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I 100% think he does. Yes,
he loves her, but being a junkie consumes more than you have love for sometimes.
I could see that.
I think is exactly what happens. And so he's more concerned about himself more than that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Homelander, that guy, that was obviously Homelander told him to take care of his business behind the scenes, apparently, and he took care of his business. I mean, dude.
Yeah, I guess I could see two potential things here. He knew how bad it would be if Homelander got a hold of her, so he did it himself, right. Or he was doing it to protect himself.
Yeah, and there's a little, in a weird way, it's such a protect himself, but the way he did it, it's almost like putting down an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even though he loves her, he's more concerned about his habit right now than her. And I think that is very true of people who are addicts to certain things, anything, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Is there a possible element of betrayal where he thinks she should have never rolled over on him?
That probably is, but he's also the kind of jerk that, it's okay for him to be, it's okay for him to do what he wants in the relationship. Mm-hmm. Because he's A-Train. He's part of the Seven.
Right.
She's not, as he's reminded her in a previous episode, like she's a washed up, B member of some B squad hero kind of deal. And so, he's an abusive type personality. So there's a love, but there's also, I don't know. It's hard. I don't understand those relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Thank God. I'm very happy I don't understand this relationship.
Yeah. Tough situation to be in.
Absolutely.
As the intro credits roll for the show, we see the Japanese soup girl wake up. The last time we saw her, Butcher had gassed her as she was attacking Frenchie in the tunnels by the subway station. We see that she is in a room in a small apartment. She has some really advanced looking handcuffs on her. Frenchie is cooking for her. He's describing how he cooked the chicken for her as he is presenting her with the food. Le poulet, talking about.
It looks really good.
It does.
It looks good.
I mean, he was going to open a 3 Michelin star restaurant, in that building, right?
Hey, Fogo de Chao, baby.
Yeah. Okay. The Frenchie continues to talk to her after he presents the food, saying he thinks that she understands him. He can see it in her eyes. He asks her to talk to him so they can find those that did this to her and get her back home. As he's talking, the camera is pointing at her and you can see her cheeks start twitching. As soon as he mentions getting her back home, she launches herself at him and she reaches the end of the chain that secures her to the wall, inches from his face. And she is scary fast.
Yes.
Do you think she can really understand him at this point, or is she just picking up on his emotions?
I think there's a little of both. I look at it from her point of view, like she went from a cage with guards to being chained up in a corner with a guard. Frenchie's not as menacing, and obviously is working very hard to be calming to her. And I think she sees that. I think because she's able to be walked off that edge quick. She doesn't just sit there trying to, she doesn't sit there pulling those chains that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she kind of once she reaches the end and sees. First off, let's give it to Frenchie for not even budging when she pops the end of that chain,
mm-hmm.
and he's just standing there cold as ice.
Oh,
dude.
yeah,
and just cold. But he's so good though. But yeah, and I think she's starting to build something there.
Yeah. A little bit of trust, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
Because she's at least looks cleaner. Let's put it like that. She looks cleaner here, and they're feeding her.
Right.
So it's so she has to at least possibly realize that the situation is at least slightly better.
I mean, I assume the other guys were feeding her too, but I don't imagine they were talking to her the way Frenchie was,
Right.
with care in their eyes. Right. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I think you're correct.
Mhm. All right. We are now going to transition to another scene. Now, before we get into this whole section, we are going to kind of set the stage. So, Billy, I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll go,
Okay.
and then we'll go into the scene.
Okay. Well, I have a prepared statement for this, folks. I am a Christian. I've not tried to hide this any times. But what I've written here is, I know that a lot of times that Christianity is portrayed on television as a bunch of wild-eyed flat earthers and a bunch of fanatics and who just follow blind faith a lot of times. And there are a lot of Christians that do have blind faith, and that's okay to have it as long as, but our faith talks about examine itself. It never tries to hide itself. The Bible, I believe to be true. I believe it's accurately proven by history, by documentation, fulfilled prophecy, archaeology, all these things, even historical writers not present in the Bible bear a lot of this stuff out. Is why I believe this to be true. The Bible tells you to question it. But these kind of Christians focus on a feeling and an experience. You go to a concert, get real pumped up. It's easy to win converts when they're kind of jacked up on those endorphins. But, you don't want to have people that are there for feelings as well. I mean, that will come. But, you're not there for the experience. You're there because you feel it to be true. And that's kind of my statement on faith and real faith versus how this will be portrayed and how Christians are all generally lumped together.
Yeah, there's different ways that people worship, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
Well, there's so many different groups amongst ourselves. There's conservatives and liberals even in Christianity.
Mm-hmm. There's a spectrum.
There's a very big spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about, I'm very conservative, as you can imagine. I'm a very conservative. I'm lumped in with what you consider the evangelicals. I'm a Baptist, but that's just because I like the way that they regulate themselves. Baptists tend to run more democratically. They're governed by the people.
Okay.
So that's why.
As opposed to like a central authority of some type.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a Catholic Church has a central authority. We do have rules and regulations. If you're members of, like, let's say, the Southern Baptist Convention and other things like this, and your church either subscribes to or does not subscribe to these things, but you just always have to pay attention because, again, this is something that, Baptists are self-regulating. We vote for things on a personal basis in our church. Then our representatives in the church will at some point go to the Southern Baptist Convention and do our voting for us. It's like that. It's very political, very, very much like we do politics in this country.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons why I think that's why a lot of people like or dislike being Baptist. I mean, I like that we kind of are a self-regulating unit and group,
Mm-hmm.
but we follow the main precepts. Let me lay out that real quick. I'm sorry about the Bible, about Jesus. The gospel is basically that we believe that Jesus was, the Son of God, is part of God, and died for our sins, was buried, resurrected, and rose again on the third day. And that is that is our whole gospel, our whole good news. When they mention the gospel and telling people about Jesus, that's the whole thing. That's all there is to it. It's simple. It's very easy to understand, but it's also very complex and very deep. But that's the whole premise, and that's it. Right? And like I said, I couldn't get deeper without mentioning what the actual gospel is.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. I originally was not planning on getting into my viewpoint on spirituality or anything, but I think I need to, given kind of the topics we're going to cover here. So I am an agnostic. I don't believe in a higher power, but I don't say there isn't one because I cannot definitively say there is none. Where I get hung up is I am generally kind of I have to see it and understand the evidence to believe in something. So that's kind of what drives me.
Copy.
And I do believe that life has an animating spirit. Whether that is an eternal soul, I do not know. But I'm not an authority on this stuff. But
I get that.
But I think,
and I appreciate the honesty. I mean, it's like, and that's just why I love you, because we can express what we feel.
And I think it's important for us to talk about this because in this world today, there's so much division, and
Oh man.
it's important to understand that you can be friends with people that you don't necessarily agree with on things. You might agree with 99% of what a person agrees or like believes, right? You should not
Correct.
let,
Correct.
one thing drive you apart. I mean, unless it's like some really big issue. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Here's what's funny. In all honesty, the Bible commands us. It's like we are to share and to be able to give a logical, reasoned defense. We're to give what is called an apologia, which means a defense. So we're to give a defense, a reasoned defense of our faith to people at any given time, and we are to do it with honesty and with love. And that's the big thing right there, is that people don't want to be kind about it. You can do this all day long. I enjoy talking with people that don't agree with me. If everyone agreed with me, it might be kind of a bland place, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It's good to have diverse viewpoints so that you can kind of either learn to defend your own viewpoints better. I mean, if you can't,
that's what's happened to me.
If you can't properly speak on what your beliefs are when someone challenges them and you get all offended, then that's a problem. Like you need to be able
to. And this is a problem we have. This is a problem I acknowledge is a very large problem in our church. It's a very large part of the problem of the churches I grew up in, and I say this with great love and respect for the churches I grew up with and loved.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't. A lot of these places never prepare these kids, and it's not hard to. The Bible actually defends itself wholeheartedly. It's quite amazing, as I've discovered over the past few years, dude. And I'll get deeper into some of these subjects as we progress.
All right. Well, thanks for that. We're going to continue on with the show. We thought that just setting the stage would help people understand where we're coming from. We go to the Believe Expo. The first thing we see is a stage where there is a Christian concert going on. The person singing looks like a normal human at first. Then at one part of the song, we see that she has angel wings as they spread out. This reminds me of the X-Men Angel. He had angel wings. I looked up just as a refresher because I was going to read about him a little bit in case I needed to speak on anything so I don't make any mistakes. And I didn't realize he goes back all the way to X-Men #1.
Oh,
which is
all the way back.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
All the way back.
Yeah.
For me, I always have the DC reference. There's an old DC character called Dawnstar from the Legion of Superheroes. They're in the future in the 30th century, and she's actually Native American.
Okay.
With wings. So this girl on stage is more reminiscent of her because isn't the girl on stage either Native American and or mixed?
She looked black to me.
Looking young girl, black.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
So I'm kind of reminded of that more.
Yeah. Okay. I did not know about Dawnstar, so that Sorry, probably is.
Pardon the minutia.
No, that's great. It's excruciating detail. No,
it is excruciating detail.
I think that's probably a more apt description, given Angel is a man in X-Men, right? And this makes more sense. True. Yeah. The camera gives us an aerial view of the crowd. There are roughly 2,000 people there. You think that's about right? That estimate?
Easily. Okay. Easily, yeah.
The whole Believe Expo is set up as a bunch of tents in a field along with the aforementioned concert venue. It kind of looks like a county fair a little bit somewhere in there.
It does.
We see Huey and Starlight walking together amongst the tents. She's wearing her old outfit. He's commenting on how he likes this outfit better than the other feminist one. That one had a more Nicki Minaj thing going on.
I'm so sorry. I guess I need to look this Miss Minaj up. I'm so woefully behind. I've heard her name dropped several times. I understand she's probably outrageously behaving young woman, I'm assuming.
I'm not an expert. I do not really follow her. I know of her kind of in the same sense that I know of Kim Kardashian or any of these people that come up all the time. But either way, Starlight tells Huey that the other outfit sucks. Vought is only letting her wear this one because it's family friendly. And I love just how hypocritical it is. The family friendly one isn't feminist and the feminist one isn't family friendly. It's just just making up
I've always loved that mindset. So they don't understand what they say with that. What they're saying is that feminism equals non-family friendly, and that's a funny thing to say. I'm hoping they're satirical. Are they being satirical?
I think so. I hope so. But
Right.
nowadays you never know. Yeah.
I just try to avoid, I just like talking about these things with you. It's kind of funny.
I don't want to go too far into it.
Right.
I
don't want to be. I like to be famous, but not infamous.
Yeah. She goes on to tell him that she's surprised that he came to the Believe Expo since he doesn't really strike her as the religious type. And he tells her that he lapsed, but he served his time in Sunday school.
Right. And I think that's something that I'm going to make another assumption here, that he's Catholic. That's something that Catholics always talk about, being lapsed.
Okay.
Like that means they've. I think they're trying to say they grew up that way, therefore they were believers, but they've walked away from it, is what that to me states.
Okay.
So
as they are walking through the tents, people are greeting Starlight left and right as if they know her. And Huey asks her if she knows everybody there. Starlight tells him a story about how her mother drove coast to coast doing the whole Christian circuit thing with her. They attended Power Fest, Capes for Christ, and Believe Expo. The camera cuts to Butcher and MM. They're also at the expo and are listening in on this conversation through a mic Huey is wearing. Back to Huey and Starlight. Starlight is saying that the people here are like family to her, and that after everything that's happened to her, it's really nice to see them again. They walk up to Starlight's mother at this point. I got to tell you, now that you mentioned she's a Cusack, I see it. Mm-hmm. All the mannerisms in the way she talks, it's there. It's funny that I didn't notice it before.
Well, it's only because I read, thank the Lord for Amazon's X-ray feature. I always love that thing when I pause it and you can pull up whoever it is, and it said something, and it said who it was. It's like, I wonder if it's her, and it's like, and it is. She's a Cusack, and it's like, why didn't I see that? Mm-hmm. Once you hear it, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. She even looks like John. I mean, it's you can see
it's weird the way. I was thinking about this, and they all have a certain way that their facial mannerisms when they talk.
Yes.
It's like
like the Baldwins.
It's like a learned thing, I guess.
Well, that's how you can tell who their parents are for sure.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. It's just
because they behave the same way.
Yeah.
Look at the Baldwins. There's 3 or 4. That was it. Stephen, Alec, Bill.
Got Bill,
William?
Billy, yeah, or William, right?
Yeah, Billy.
Alec,
and all 3 of them Steven. Fellows look enough alike. It's and then they got cousins. Mm-hmm. They got the other. There's another Baldwin who's a big tall fellow, but he doesn't look much like them. But you can tell there's a little resemblance. Mm-hmm. So that Baldwin gene must be real strong, just like that Cusack gene must be really strong.
Huey walks up to stand next to Starlight, and the mom addresses him, asking if he wants an autograph. Then before he can respond, the mom tells Starlight, give him an autograph. He tells the mom that he and Starlight know each other, and she asks if he works for Vought. Starlight jumps in, and she kind of struggles a little bit to explain to her mom what their relationship, and she just says, this is Huey. He's a friend. And I think she does a really good job acting there. It's a really kind of
she's great,
cute.
I love her.
There's like a fondness for him there, almost like she's a bit embarrassed in front of her mom. I don't know. It comes across as very genuine. I thought she did a good job there.
And what's funny, the other thing with Starlight and her mama is that, man, her mom, I think this is an insight into how we can see how she can stomach Ashley, because you see more and more of her mama. Her mom is very similar in a way.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah, right. Copy that.
We're getting there. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. The mom does not look pleased and shakes Huey's hand.
No.
Yeah, and she probably wants Starlight to marry Homelander and have super babies or something.
You know it.
Yeah,
you know it. Oh, dude, you know it. You can see the comics and the comic book offshoots to go on for eternity with this couple.
Yeah. The conversation is interrupted as our favorite, the wonderful, charismatic Ashley shows up.
Drum roll.
Mm-hmm.
Drum roll, please. Yeah.
She asks Starlight if she's hydrating, gives her a water bottle.
Now, Now I'm going to brutalize and quote and paraphrase George Carlin. When did we become so concerned about hydration in this country? What's up with the water bottles, dude?
I was thinking about it.
I'm an addict to that stuff as well for some stupid reason.
Yeah, I drink like a gallon of water a day, right?
I do too.
I'm trying to think, how could this not have been a thing before? People had to be thirsty. Were they drinking beer? Like what were they drinking if they're not having water?
Why was my people's generation, like the older generation, were able to live to be 80 easily, that smoke and drank and ate horrible and were not obese? What's up with that? Is it non-hydration? Is that what we need to go back to? Is it better for us to be a little bit lightly hydrated?
There are a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors. There was less use of plastics, less use of pesticides. Yep. There was less genetically engineered food.
Sure.
I'm sure all of this plays into it.
Okay. Yeah, you're true.
They were probably more active.
Oh, yeah. It was a hard lifestyle.
And there was less fast food and processed food.
Yeah.
Right? If you were living on a farm, you were eating what was available locally. It was... My dad grew up poor, chopping that cotton, and they would like have to hunt squirrels and other things like that. Mm-hmm. So it was hard, and it was a hard life. Yeah.
I mean, they had a house that faced east-west here in Texas, in the town of West, which is by Waco. And he said that his mama my grandmother ironed other people's stuff in a window facing the rising sun with a potbelly stove ironing, where you put the iron on the thing. So can you imagine ironing in 120 degrees?
Jeez.
To make a little bit of money for your family. I mean, and we complain. People just didn't have air conditioning. It was not a thing. My parents said they just didn't think about it.
They didn't even have fans, probably.
You had fans.
Oh, did they?
But you didn't think about it. You had fans, but you didn't think about air conditioning. They a lot of times slept on the porch in the summer. That's why they had a lot of screened-in porches. Here in this town, the wind comes up at night. Back in the day, it wouldn't have been too bad here.
Mm-hmm.
I could see why you would build here.
Right.
It's really nice. Breeze come up.
You have some altitude.
Yeah, I got a little altitude. Sleep on you sleep on a porch. Breeze comes up at night, dude. You'd be all right here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ashley addressed. So no answer on the hydration.
Yeah, no. Sorry, just a digression. No answer. Just a digression. And you're welcome, folks.
We'll have to do some research and get back to you. Yeah, Maybe. I still haven't figured out what happens to your body when you go to the depths.
I did read on that.
Okay, let's go.
Okay,
do it.
If you go, what the biggest thing is once you get down a certain depth, you just start being crushed. Every orifice that has air is pushed shut, and you start being crushed, literally. And then
but nothing comes out. It just goes in.
It goes in, okay. And then you will just sink. And you will just sink at a certain pressure, instead of, it doesn't matter what happens to your body, as opposed to in like a lake, a body bobbing back up. It's not going to happen if you get someone deep enough. It's just going to pull them down, apparently. But the crushing depths will pull you down and crush you like a tin can, I guess, is kind of, I think that's a pretty apt metaphor.
Anywhere where you could be compressed will be compressed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ashley addresses Starlight's mother and asks her how her flight was.
Little Xanax, little wine. It was good.
It tells you a little bit about her,
right? Tells a lot about Mama. I tell you what, little Xanax, little wine makes anything pretty good, but she shouldn't be a mom like that. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little uptight.
Not a good way to live life.
Nope.
Yeah. Starlight's mother is in the middle of responding, and Ashley isn't looking at her. She starts talking to Starlight, not even listening to the response. No. This, to me, it's not acceptable, right?
Agreed.
If you're going to ask someone something, look them in the eye, pay them the respect they deserve,
Agreed.
And listen to what they have to say.
Agreed.
This whole, hey, how you doing? Turn, not even listening. I mean, you can see with the mom's reaction. She kind of stops in the middle of her sentence.
Yes.
Kind of, I don't like the mom.
She's brushed off.
But yeah, but it's not a good way to handle dealing with people, even if it's ones you don't like. If
Absolutely.
you're not going to care about their response, why even ask?
Don't ask. Thank you. Thank you.
Just...
Don't ask. I'm fine with you not asking me how I'm doing, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might find it a tad rude being a Southern boy, but at the same time, I'd rather you not ask me and then brush off the answer.
Yeah. Ashley is reminding Starlight about her teen roundtable, which takes place in 15 minutes, and asks if she's ready. The mom jumps in. She says, she was born ready.
Cringe.
I should know. I was there.
It's cringe. It's so brutally cringeworthy.
Mm-hmm. Starlight asks Huey if he wants to go to the round table. He tells her, nah, you go ahead without me. We go back to the main stage where Ezekiel is giving a speech. And I wanted to ask you on your thoughts for his delivery. Let me give some examples of how he's talking. He says, Jesus said, hey, bro, bring it in. And another thing, he says, people who have faith, those are my peeps, y'all. That's what Jesus said. I mean, it's just like, what?
Now, I will just say this. I despise this representation because Jesus is not my, I'm going to air quote this one. Jesus is not my homeboy. If he's my homeboy, he's probably not. I mean, this is a person I find worthy of worship, you know? So I do not like this presentation. When he was here, I think he was really cool. But he's also, what a lot of people don't seem to realize who haven't read the Bible, he's pretty harsh, dude. He read the room, and he said what needed to be said to who needed to be said. And he could say some things to some folks. I mean, do you tell your friends, hey, you sons of your father, the devil, you hypocrites, you know, you whitewashed tombs. That's not nice talking to people, you know. So he wasn't always just super friendly. So when he was here in peace. But the second time, dude, he's not going to be here. He's going to be ruling. So I've always despised this. Jesus is your homeboy, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think it's probably just trying to reach the crowd is relatively young, right?
They are, but I
just feel that it's the wrong way to go about it. It seems too informal.
It's mischaracterization. It's a gross mischaracterization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also his other delivery on other things, the things he says, you know, the Bible, those guys, you know, those are the people with faith. That's my peeps. Like, again, you know, Jesus, he always had room for questions. There's never, you know, again, that's the thing about Christianity that's cool is it says ask questions. All other world religions say do not ask. Christianity is the one that says ask, please. If you can't ask, it's not worth following. So please ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
Okay. As Ezekiel is given his speech, Butcher, MM, and Huey are standing in the crowd. They're checking out the security around the area. Butcher has a great quote here. He says, 2 at every entrance, armed to holy hell, in church. Well, that's America for you, isn't it? MM points to some security cameras as well. And Butcher says, yeah, security's tighter than a choir boy's hole. That is so wrong. I don't even want to picture this. It's just...
Oh, my word.
Why?
Again, and I'm going to have to ask this question again. Have you read any Preacher by Garth Ennis or anything like that?
No.
Again, you're welcome to borrow mine digitally anytime you want. But I always find Preacher to be almost like a template for some of this stuff that he writes. The boys, there's a lot of this harshness that is not, it's the same kind of level of violence, also the same level of harsh language. He's just got away with both. That's really quite funny. And I don't know where he comes up with it, but my word, it's tough. He's tough. Yeah. He's got a bad mouth.
Bad visual image there.
Bad visual image, yes.
Want it. Thank you, Garth Ennis. Ezekiel's speech continues.
Sorry.
So let me ask you something.
Okay.
I got you, I guess.
Yeah.
Ezekiel's speech continues. So let me ask you something. Why could Jesus walk on water?
Oh, gosh.
Why does Homelander fly? How about A-Train? Why does he get to run the way he runs? He then holds his arms out to the sides and he stretches them very wide. I'd say it looks about 15 feet or so.
Yeah.
Or how do I get to hold the whole world in my loving embrace? Why were we chosen? Because the Lord, because we were born with his power, because we believe. This message seems weird to me.
It is.
They're born with power because they believe. Am I hearing this wrong?
I don't know if it's that or if it's the idea that they're saying that they're being, that not that they're being blessed by God personally to make them appear more Christ-like or more Messiah-like, maybe, but maybe not just because they believe, but they believe because they've been blessed by the Lord, or or they feel that they've been personally selected by the Lord, something like that. Maybe that might be the image they're trying to sell. Because once again, it's all about the image for sure.
Right. Huey has a pamphlet where it says you can buy a special pass for $15,000 to get into an exclusive backstage event with Ezekiel.
I don't know if I want a backstage event with Ezekiel. We've seen that, haven't we? Episode 1?
That's the backstage.
Oh, sorry.
This is a more formal.
It's the VIP. That's the VIP room.
Maybe this is the grooming room. All right.
Okay, sorry.
Huey wants to know if there is an easier, cheaper way for them to get to Ezekiel. Butcher corrects him. We aren't getting to Ezekiel. You are. Huey and MM are both surprised by this. Butcher tells them that Starlight's one of the headliners and she'll get Huey in. Huey doesn't think that this is going to work since they've only been on a date and a half. These are his words.
I wonder how do you qualify as a half a date? I'm curious about that.
I'm thinking that's the one where they ate the nachos at the race.
Oh, okay. Good call. Thank you. Well spoken, sir. Enlightening wit on this guy. I love it.
Yeah, Butcher asks him if he's worried his fake soup girlfriend is going to think that he's using her. Huey plays along and asks, what? Then do I just ask Ezekiel about why he's smuggling blue dope into Chinatown basements? Butcher shows him footage of Ezekiel getting freaky with the two men in the soup club that they went to in episode 1, the thing that you were just alluding to.
The backstage?
The backstage, yeah. Butcher says, yeah, pretty much once you show him this. MM asks why this is the first time he's hearing about this plan. Huey needs to be trained up. Huey agrees, saying, yeah, what he said. I don't know how to blackmail anybody. Butcher comes back with Huey. You done a murder. Comparatively speaking, this will be a piece of cake. Oh, I think this is a really low blow to Huey.
That's exceptionally harsh.
Yeah. It's not.
Butcher is a real piece of crap, isn't he?
How many days? It's been, 2 days since that incident?
What's funny, I think that there's some things said here that I think time is starting to speed up a little bit. I think those first 3 episodes take place relatively short.
Mm-hmm. Butcher walks off, and MM and Huey look at each other. All MM can do is pat Huey on the back and say, I know. We go to Homelander and Maeve in Chicago. Homelander is delivering a memorial speech for the victims of Transoceanic Flight 37. It's a somber speech. He calls the crash a senseless act of violence. It's, dark coming from him, right?
Yeah, it is.
He reads out the names of the victims. Naturally, this speech is difficult for Maeve to listen to, given what transpired in the airplane. The attendees of the memorial are the family members of the victims of the crash. Many of them are holding pictures of their lost loved ones. Sitting in the front row, we see a girl holding a picture of the girl and the mother that Maeve was trying to save on the plane.
Ow.
Yeah, talk about a slap in the face. Maeve walks off and sits on a bench near a body of water. I guess this could be Lake Michigan, but I'm not 100% sure because just looking at the backgrounds, it doesn't seem to line up with the map of Chicago, but I'm not that familiar with Chicago. And I do want to commend the attention to detail of the showrunners. I originally thought this was taking place in New York because the pieces of the flight were washing up on the shore in New York. If you remember, there was like an NYPD officer there, but in the background here, we can see the city skyline and they have the John Hancock Center in the distance.
See, I'm from Texas. All cities are the same, dude. If it's a handful of skyscrapers now, I haven't been to Houston as an adult. Now, Houston is one of our more metropolitan areas, but most of our cities here are relatively small. Speaking of compared to other cities,
That's what I was gonna say. A danger of, like saying something bad about Texas. There aren't really any notable
no,
buildings
no,
here.
I say this with all love. I love Texas, man. I'm a
Yeah,
Texas boy, born and bred. I love it here. That's not an insult. All of our cities look alike.
somewhat.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, but growing up, I was really interested in skyscrapers.
Sure.
Yet another one of my things that I like to research. And I was really into, and this is one of those buildings that is very memorable. It's kind of trapezoidal shaped, and it has those two white antennas on top of it. Another reason I recognize it.
I'm gonna pull it up here. Look at the John Hancock building.
Yes, another reason I recognize it is there was a flight simulator game. I believe it was Flight Simulator 4.0.
Nice.
And one of the things,
dude, you're as old as me. I love it.
yeah, it's pretty recognizable, right? It doesn't really look like a lot of other buildings.
I love it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it the dark colored building, you mean?
Yeah, it's got two white antennas on top of it.
Oh, yeah, that's very distinct. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very thank
They
you.
also had the Sears Tower in Chicago, which I don't think it's called Sears Tower anymore, but that was for a long time the tallest building in the world.
Yes, it was.
And then now I think it's Burj Khalifa, and
that's the place in where is that?
UAE.
UAE.
All right. Homelander comes and finds her after the conclusion of his speech, and he's asking her where she went. She tells him the only thing she hates more than blubbering people is boring speeches. Homelander says, right. Then proceeds to remind her of an event that took place last year. There was a nut job in Albany. This is in New York.
Yeah.
He killed his wife, then came out of his house holding a gun to his daughter's head. The cops were pissing their pants. They didn't know what to do. Maeve steps up calmly, asks for the sergeant's Bic pen, and flings it 26 yards right into the man's eyeball.
Mm.
That's super impressive. We haven't seen her do anything on that level of skill since this show started. She's more of a bruiser type, if anything.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a two-fisted, what we've seen from her.
Mm-hmm. But this is showing weapon skill and accuracy. Yeah.
I would love to see that scene, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do I find that oddly attractive?
I think
is there something wrong with
people
me?
that have mastered skill, it's to me it's attractive.
I talk about Fringy's love of dangerous women. I think I kind of have a spot for dangerous women as well.
Yeah. Homelander finishes the story saying, "Dead shot, dead shooter." She asks him what his point is, and he tells her his point is she took action. That's what he loves about her. She's shaking her head. He continues saying, "No one wanted the plane to go down the way it did. Of course not. And now they have to make the best of it. Otherwise it was all for nothing." I really find it interesting how he's justifying the outcome to himself. Completely detached from any sense of responsibility. Now we just have to make the best of it.
Yeah. He feels nothing as long as he gets his way.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he gets his way, he's good. It's like a giant baby.
Maeve says, "What did I tell you about boring speeches?"
Great response, man. Great response.
He doesn't say anything and just looks at her. She's sassy, man. But I mean,
sassy.
Here's the thing. She has a right to be mad in this case.
Dude, that's a horrifying.
And there's probably a lot more that we don't know about what went on between these two. And yeah, given what he put her through with that airplane.
And we'll find out later on. I mean, dude, I would turn to what she turned to as well. I mean,
yeah,
I can't imagine she's sleeping good. Homelander couldn't care less, but she probably is not sleeping good.
We'll get to that later in this episode too.
Think about that little girl. Yeah, think about that little girl and that woman in that front seat. That really, that's a.
Well, that was the hard part for me to watch in that scene, if you remember.
It is.
Yeah,
it's hard.
The mom begging for the daughter. Yeah, that was terrible. We are taken back to the Believe Expo, where we are treated with a poster that has Homelander flying next to Air Force One. The caption reads, "Impure thoughts? lie straight. Starlight and her mother are walking by the booth that has the poster, and Starlight asks her mom when this messaging started. And her mom asks what she's talking about. It's always been there.
It's always been there.
And in the back of the tent that they're next to, there's a big banner in the background that says 1 man plus 1 woman equals marriage. Starlight pauses for a moment. She's thinking about it. And do you think this was always there, or is she just now noticing it, that she's not been around this stuff for a while?
I think she's just now noticing it. You have people who have been raised up in this atmosphere their whole life, and they believe it until they've been exposed to even the most slightest doubt, as opposed to preparing your children for this stuff. So she's starting to see what she thinks is facts, and with the mother behaving like she does, why should things be different? So, she is, she's seeing it, and it's kind of freaking her out, dude.
Yeah.
Because again, like I say, this is the same group of Christians that are going to be portrayed as a bunch of Luddites and anti-technology, and again, not just trying to plug Christianity into how great they have been, but Christianity is the basis for universities, hospitals, orphanages, anti-slavery, civil rights movement. I mean, like, so this stuff you can keep listening. We preserved knowledge through the Dark Ages of opinions that stood against ours. We were, true Christianity is about preserving true knowledge, regardless of how it paints us, because we want knowledge. We want people to have, I expect the person to want to look around.
Mm-hmm.
It's encouraged. I don't understand why we've allowed ourselves to be painted as a bunch of closed-minded, narrow-minded bigots, when, in all honesty, all the ones I've grown up with are some of the most open-minded people you would have ever met. And how we're portrayed, is so clown-like in this stuff. And that's what's more offensive than anything else. I mean, I don't care if you don't like me, in all honesty, but that's not who we are. But we've allowed ourselves to be painted this way. And most of it's just we want to make sure that Jesus just wants us to get along. No, we're supposed to we're supposed to stand up a little bit.
Mm. You know what I find interesting, as you're talking about Christianity here, like, I'm thinking about the characters that they're portraying in this show and their behaviors, right? So let's start with the mom. Mm-hmm. Her behavior, pushing Starlight into this. We're going to get more into her later in this episode.
Well, and we can also go to real life. I mean, we have a bunch of outstandingly, scary individuals in Christianity who have, look at all the televangelists that are so sleazy. They give us all the bad black eye. Catholics, a lot of the things that Catholics have done have given Christianity in general a black eye. But all the structure that we see of Catholicism now, I think that's a relatively newer thing. That's relatively the past 500-600 years. It comes so bureaucratic and all that, the saints and all this stuff. That I don't believe the initial earlier church had that stuff with all that. It wasn't so ritualized. So that's where I have a lot of falling out with different groups, is over different aspects. But we're all lumped together as Christians. And I don't know any of those Christians that people are talking about.
Like, if we look at the characters that they have in this show and how they're portraying the people that are in this environment. Okay, so let me just list a couple of them real quick. So that we got Starlight's mom. She isn't the best person that we've seen so far, right? Then we have Homelander, who is an ordained minister in, I'm using air quotes here.
You know what it takes to be ordained, don't you?
No.
About $5, and you mail all for it. I think what Scott and about 10 other people we worked with all got ordained on a whim.
Wow.
Up at the Late Fries Electronics. We apparently had about 10 or 15 ordained ministers running around. So it doesn't require a whole lot to become a quote unquote ordained minister.
Okay.
You could send in for something and you could marry people if you wanted to. It's just that easy.
You could go to Las Vegas and have a job.
Right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, listing out characters, continuing on, we got Ezekiel. He's a hypocrite.
Can we have the Horse Frog Wedding Chapel? We can both officiate.
Oh man,
we can officiate via our web.
I'm going to get off all this. All right, we're done. All right,
okay,
we're going to move on. All right, I give up. The teen roundtable is
They
beginning.
on target.
Okay, the
Sorry.
teen roundtable is beginning. Starlight is introduced by a pastor. The kids are excited to see her, and the pastor asks them not to be shy. Starlight used to be sitting in the same chairs they're sitting in now. The first girl timidly raises her hand up. She asks whether she should spread the word to her Hindu friend on her soccer team to get her to accept Jesus. She isn't sure how she should feel about it, saying it feels weird to her.
Now, as a Christian, it is my job not to get people to accept Christ. It's a big misconception. We're to tell them about them, which I've explained the good news before, the death, burial, resurrection, et cetera, et cetera. But we're just to tell them about it. What people do with this information is on them. But a lot of children are taught this in our church, and it's a very bad thing that they're taught.
This goes not just with religion, though, in terms of the individual has to be ready to receive the message.
Absolutely.
For it to do any good, right?
And that
it could be
involves
beyond religion. It could be weight loss. It could be,
Right.
hey, you're drinking too much. It
Right.
could be, hey, you need to stop taking drugs. Whatever the case is, if the person doesn't want to hear the message, if they aren't ready to receive it, it's just going to go over their head.
That's right. And,
right.
And that's exactly why so many kids won't even try it, because they feel, and this was myself up until very recently, where I was always under that impression you had to get the home run kind of deal. And once you realize, no, it's not, it's up to us to plant the seed. Maybe at some point later in their life, something will happen with that information. Something may happen. It may or may not, but that's not on you. It's your job to have it, but you may be the person that has the opportunity at that point in that person's life. But what happens with, again, like you said, that person would be prompted spiritually at that point to either receive or not. So,
right. Starlight handles this situation, this question. She tells the girl that Jesus also says to love your neighbor. And the pastor kind of jumps in and he says, don't you want to save your friend from damnation? Think of it as good news. You want your friend to find eternal life, right? And Starlight's in the background as he's saying this. What do you think she's thinking when he's saying this? It doesn't really look like she agrees with this messaging.
No, because the pastor is absolutely confirming what that first girl said, that it is up to the pastor is confirming that it is on that girl to indeed win her Hindu friend for Christ. And that is an incorrect message, I believe. As a Christian, I feel it's a very incorrect message. There's a lot of pressure to put on your children. You need to make sure and teach those kids what you want them to believe. It's on you. And I'll go even one deeper. Because I don't know if you saw my notes deeper through here, but this is why we tell people, because of the fear of hell. That's not for myself, but for my good friends like you. I don't want anybody to go there. It's so bad I didn't even want Hitler there, dude. And there's, you know who Penn Jillette is, correct? From Penn and Teller.
Yeah.
So Penn tells this wonderful story. I'm a terrible storyteller. I'll paraphrase this, but a guy gave him a Bible because he was concerned about Penn's soul. And Penn is a hardcore atheist. But Penn was extremely touched by this motion because the man was so concerned for his soul, that he feels that every Christian should have this same concern. He's like, you must hate people to not tell them about Christianity. If you're not telling them, is sending them to hell. And for an atheist to say that means he respects a Christian flat out telling you what he believes more than you shutting up and not telling him what you believe. And I find that quite powerful.
Yeah. I mean, there is something powerful in individuals that choose to live by a creed. They honor that.
It altered my life, brother. That's all I can say, and I've seen what it can do to people. This is why I am how I am. You've seen me though. You knew me in my rough days. You knew me when I could you knew me. Well, I mean, you knew me when I could swear and cuss, but dude, I was pretty much a functioning drug addict at the time you knew me. I was a pill. I was on pills a lot, love popping pills. I don't mind sharing this information publicly. It's okay. This changed my life, dude. I mean, and it wasn't just that. It was, other people praying for me and whatnot. I feel that, I was led at that time to come back to the Lord. And dude, it carried me through difficult times, which we'll get to a later point. We're talking about funerals in a minute. I bring up an anecdote about my late wife and how that carried me through that so brilliantly.
Well, I'm glad that you found something that gave you the strength to disassociate yourself from the drugs.
Right.
And, you seem a lot happier now, for sure.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I'm extremely happy.
That's good. Yeah. A male audience member asks if Starlight has ever had a boyfriend. She says she did. She was with Drummer Boy for a while, almost a year. And what do you think his powers are?
I thought Sonic based because of the Drummer Boy, but I looked online. So sorry for the cheating, folks, but it's flight and electrical powers.
I wonder if their electrical powers cancel each other out. Starlight and his.
I don't even really know what her powers technically are. She's strong. I do know she's strong and fast. So she has like some enhanced reflexes and strength, of course, to be able to punch through bricks without feeling it. And we saw her kind of curling the front end of a car. So that's a ton easily. That's 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
it's if not 2 tons, most cars are 2 to 3 tons. But other than that, I'm not even sure what her light powers do. I know she can blind you.
Right.
Does she grab electrical sources and use them to generate?
There's got to be some aspect of that, because we'll get to a story her mom's going to tell later where she lit the room up with.
That's true, and also we saw her break screens in the bot tower. True. So
yeah, we'll have to look into this further and see exactly how these manifest themselves.
I'm curious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think I've seen her cast a beam or anything like that.
No, not yet. It's more like blasts.
That's true. I guess it is more like a blast. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
One of the other audience members very furtively asks if she had sex with him. There are some giggles in the crowd and some embarrassed looks from some of them. Starlight gives a very circuitous answer, saying she thinks everyone hopes that their first is the one, and this topic is private, but she pauses and the pastor is really kind of eyeballing her and kind of nodding his head, and he's trying to prompt her to give an acceptable response. She finishes the statement saying she's a virgin.
I think she should have told the truth, because I feel a good church would welcome her truth and welcome not her. I'm sorry, because I hate that statement, her personal truth. But I hate that, because there is either truth or there's not truth. I don't believe I don't believe in an objective truth. I believe that there is truth and not truth, because it's like this. If you make a statement that says there is no such thing as truth, that statement can't be true, can it?
There is no such thing as true. Yeah, you're right. It does not make sense.
It's a self-cancel. It cancels itself out. So there's either truth or, I'm sorry, and that's, maybe I'm being narrow-minded, but there is either a truth or there's not truth. And I feel that she should tell the truth, man.
Let me throw you for a loop here a little bit. The human mind with memory is not very reliable.
Absolutely.
Right?
Unreliable.
What someone believes happened is not necessarily always what actually happened, right?
Do you want me to go deep on this one?
We don't necessarily need to go deep on it. I'm just kind of throwing a theoretical.
Because I have a point about the Gospels in this, and a policeman.
Okay.
One of my favorite Christian apologists is a former cold case detective named Jim Warner Wallace. He goes by J. Warner Wallace. He's the most. He's been on late night or one of those television shows more times than anybody, like 2020 or Nightline or something like that. He was an atheist. He, being a cop, knew it would probably be good to raise his children in a church foundation, just because it at least instills something in children. Even though he doesn't believe it, he realizes the purpose of religion in that aspect, at least. So he's intrigued by something a preacher says and reads the red bits in the Bible. The words of Jesus are, in some Bibles you buy are in red. So he went through and read the red. Now, the first 4 books of the Bible cover the same period of time, and it's told from 4 different aspects. And a lot of people are confused by this and are put off by this, because they're like, well, the Gospels contradict each other and they tell different stories. And as a detective, This is what brought Warner closer to Christ and the gospel, was the fact that these were obviously eyewitness accounts, and the fact that, it kind of goes like this: if you put four people on four corners, on a corner, but there's four sides to a corner, right, at a street
Mm-hmm.
corner, and they see an accident, if they tell you they saw the same exact thing, there's a problem. They each saw four different things leading up to the accident. And
Yes.
and they're also writing to different audiences. And so this is what led him to become a Christian, was the fact that they did not line up word for word on all the occasions and on all this stuff. And there's other things in the Gospels that I find fascinating. The fact that the Gospel writers, they make themselves look like idiots. This is a proof of truth to historians. And also for Jim Warner Wallace as a cop, there's three things that drive humans: sex, money, power. These guys achieved none of this through trying to develop a quote unquote religion to control people. All that Dan Brown stuff from the Da Vinci Code, none of that is even true on how first on how the Gospels were formed, or even the Council of Nicaea is not even what that's about. It's not, it's what a lot of people, they don't understand the true history behind how the Bible is actually put together, how it's been assembled over the years. It was through a common agreement through house churches. They just did it. It just kind of codified itself. And then there is a council at some point that decided to say, we're going to go ahead and say these are the ones. But other than that, there wasn't some group that said, we're going to follow these books, we're going to ignore these books, and we're going to be a patronistic society.
So if I understood you correctly, this police officer or detective,
yes,
because there is, from his perspective, the witnesses all saw something different.
Yes.
But there is one truth
yes.
that they are kind of dancing around, like they kind of see aspects of it, but none of them are exactly.
I'll give you an example.
Right?
A prime example is like there's three different versions of. Have you ever heard of the possessed man called Legion? Does that ring any bells with you?
No.
And did you ever see The Exorcist?
Yes.
Okay. I think the demon may claim itself to be Legion at one point. There is Jesus and the disciples come to a country, and they're met by a man who is possessed by demons, multiple demons. And I'm talking like a legion of demons. So we've talked about what a Roman legion is. What did we say the number was on a Roman legion?
Was it 1,000?
1,000?
I want to say, or was it 4,000? I can't remember.
It's multiple thousands, but it's not just 1,000. So in one of the accounts, or in two of the accounts, they're met by the one who comes running up, and he cannot be restrained. He's got broken chains holding off of him. He's naked. He lives in the tombs, howling all night, and cannot be restrained because he breaks chains and runs away. When he runs into Jesus, he runs and falls before him, and so this demon possessed man is asked, "What do you want with us? You're here before the time, meaning the end of time. Don't send us to the abyss. Can we be thrown into the swine? This is his pig country." And so he lets them go into the swine. The swine kill themselves and throw themselves into the sea. But there's one guy in this story. But then one of the other disciples tells it is two. And people see this as a contradiction. And the thing is like, you have to realize for ancient writings, there's different. I'm fascinated by something called textual criticism. And this is how you look at ancient writings. You have to, first off, we tend to look at things from our point of view from now. You cannot apply a 21st century viewpoint to a first century book.
Okay.
Even though it's true, you still have to apply how the people thought and how they knew. So each disciple was writing to different audiences. The Jews wanted to hear one thing. So they needed to hear. They wanted to hear things that what Jews needed to hear. Roman audience had an action. So the disciple that writes the gospel to the Romans, well, his book is filled with the word "and" in English, because it's constantly moving from point to point to point to point to point. It's because the Romans are people of action. So the audiences are different, but the difference between two people and one people is, I've heard people, it's just as simple as this. If you're telling us if there's one person, if there's two people, there's still one person. again, this is not a contradictory position. They're complementary. And again, there's people that are way smarter than me that study textual criticism. This is the study of fragments of scripture. As a Christian, I never understand why people have a hard time accepting that this is a true book, at least from a historical perspective. It keeps being proven correctly each time. Wrong usage of information given before discovery of usage of information has been happened multiple times. Luke was not a true disciple. He was not there as a witness. He was a friend of Peter's, and he was actually a doctor. And so he told things in a way that at first our modern historians laughed at him until about 5 or 6, 7 years ago. We found some information that said we were very wrong, but you don't hear them on the corrections of the Bible. It's never been proven incorrect. I'll just put it like that.
Okay.
So
I'm trying to wrap my head around where I was going with all this was the personal truth thing. No. I'm trying to bring it all back. So you said you don't believe in personal truth. There's only one truth.
Well, I believe there's truth or not truth. Yes.
Yeah. And then what I was getting at was people may not remember things correctly. So to them, what they think is real could be considered their air quotes personal truth.
Now, I can agree with that. What they remember.
Yeah, because what they remember is to them their truth, right?
Yes.
Now, whether or not that is reality, there's really no way to know unless you have some type of proof one way or the other, right?
And this is a slippery slope because I could always throw the question at you. You do know that you cannot empirically prove what you've even had for breakfast.
Well, yeah, then we're going to start getting into all kinds of crazy scenarios.
Exactly. But you see where I'm coming from, though. It's a lot of people want to you can argue from the point of things and from the absence of things. But, I always argue from the fact that I feel that due to what I told you about the Bible being like the fulfilled prophecy and archaeology documentation and historically proven from people like Pliny the Younger and other historical writers that are Roman and not friends to Christianity by any stretch of the imagination, back up several events historically.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's another thing in our favor, I always feel, because a lot of people want to argue that because for some reason we as Christians don't want to argue that from an ancient book, we can't use the book to prove itself. You can use the book to prove itself. I'm sorry. It's an ancient book. It's an ancient book that you could build the entire New Testament without any New Testament fragments from the quotes of the from the church father. They're so quoted that you can build the entire New Testament from their quotes. So, but this stuff was written within 30 years to 40 years of the events in the first of the events of the crucifixion, resurrection, all that kind of stuff, and all the brutal deaths of the disciples. So versus like Plato, I think it's Plato. Plato, we didn't find the first books of his stuff. There's about 1,400 year gap between finding copies of Plato between when he actually wrote. But we don't question whether Plato wrote Plato. But the New Testament was written from 50 to 100 AD and not too far from the events. So I never understand why there's so much. I know there's a lot of supernatural claims in the Bible. I think that's the biggest problem that people have.
So Plato didn't write his own stuff?
Plato lived about 500 BC, 400 BC. We found his earliest writings in about 900 was the earliest.
But he wrote them himself?
These weren't the copies of his. These were copies of copies of copies of copies.
Okay.
So this because another thing that people want to talk about the Bible is it a game of telephone? Has it changed over the years? Why is there so many English translations? Why is there so many this, that, and the other? It's actually, there has been little to no change in the Bible, and all the changes, there's anything that has been added. There are some verses that aren't necessarily in the earliest manuscripts, but nothing alters the message, the gospel at all. Nothing is harmed by these slight variances. That's why I'm so secure. That's why there's a lot of security in our belief of the Bible being accurate. The Dead Sea Scrolls prove the Old Testament to be inerrant. It was one of these things we found. They had a Dead Sea Scroll. We found a copy of Isaiah. It's called the Great Isaiah Scroll. from some of the earliest stuff that they had a codified Old Testament by about 200 BC. It wasn't bound as a book, mind you, but it was what was accepted as testament and whatnot. But this, I'll get sidetracked. I'll stop from there. I'll just, let me just stop right there. I'll get really. This is all this stuff is, as you can tell, this is what I've spent happening the past 4 years is studying apologetics and all this stuff about textual criticism and how we got the Bible and why it can be trusted, why we can rely on it. As I believe it to be inaccurate. I believe it, like I said, I can give you a statistical, if you like statistics and weird facts, I'll give you a fun one. What do you think the odds of 8 prophecies being fulfilled? Now, prophecies in the Bible are not vague things like Nostradamus. These are very specific, given about place, times, and they're very, 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 very specific. There's over 330 prophecies that Christ fulfilled. Now, the odds of 8 being fulfilled.
I have no idea even how to go about starting with that.
I'll tell you, it's 1 in 100 quadrillion, which is a 1 with 17 zeros behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the visual representation of this is that if you fill the state of Texas 2 feet deep with silver dollars and you put an X on one, and let's say we mix it up real good, and I send you out in the middle of it, and you go down and you pick up the one that I put the X on.
Mm-hmm.
That's 1 in 100 quadrillion odds. That's 8 prophecies. He fulfilled 330 something plus prophecies.
So it's like about Powerball odds.
It's even worse. It's one of those kind of things that it's statistically impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then again, statistically impossible for us to even be here.
Yeah.
And this is from even a modern scientist who are not Christians. We live in a hostile universe.
Yeah.
We live in but I will stop. I'll stop. And I hope this gives you some good information that you like.
I mean, I haven't stopped you because I find it interesting.
Right.
So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. That was kicked off by us talking about truth.
The virgin, she should have told the truth.
Yeah. The kids around the room are nodding at her response. And Starlight is speaking with a strange cadence here. She's saying she is saving herself for her future husband. It doesn't sound like she means it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. And the pastor is nodding. He quotes Hebrews 13:4. Let the bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral.
And I'm going to throw a BTW at this. That means all sexual immorality, straight or gay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's just all sexual immorality. So we get a black eye about our thing, on our anti-gay stance. It's not because we hate, we do not hate homosexuals. We do not. We want them.
Mm-hmm.
We want everyone. Hey, dude, I want everyone to be up there. I want to have a great time in the eternity. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
I want everyone safe.
Yep. While this pastor is saying this, the camera stays on Starlight, and she looks conflicted. Outside, Butcher is speaking to an older gentleman working a booth. this is, yeah. Prepare yourselves for some blasphemy, as I quote Butcher here.
Bring it.
Yeah. You put your earmuffs on if you're.
and don't forget, just bleep it. So say the words that you want to say.
Well, I don't think he specifically. We'll get into it. Let me see. Okay.
So spell it out.
Yep. The gentleman is saying he's not sure what Butcher is saying. Butcher says, I'm saying if there is some geezer up there with a big white beard, he's a world heavyweight. And the man says, I'm sorry. Did you just call God a Butcher confirms, yeah. He's got a hard-on for mass murder and giving kids cancer. And his big old answer to the existential cluster that is humanity is to nail his own bleeding son to a plank. That is a move. Come on. Even you got to agree with me there.
Okay. Now, I will definitely unpack something here because I cannot just let this slide. These are two. The most commonly argued thing for the past 2,000 years has been the hiddenness of God argument, and also the argument from evil, because bad things happen to good people. Well, first off, I'm sorry, I don't believe that people are good. And because this is a thing that I can do a test with you if you like, but I'd rather not do the evangelistic test on you right now. But there's we're not good things. Look at the mass murders that we commit. Look at the fact that we love to kill each other and steal things. I mean, I look at my own personal behavior and the fact that if, I don't want people to really know who I really am a lot of times. I mean, this is what's changed in the past 4 years for me. I don't mind people knowing me now, but there was always a hidden part of me I didn't want people to know. We're not really good people. So I never understood these people argue, well, we're such good people, these good children. It's like, yeah, it's a hard world, but I'm also a big believer in free will. A lot of it, it's like you either want it. It's like you don't want him to exist, but you want him to exist, and not bad things happen. It's bad things happen. Sorry. Bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen to bad people. Bad things just happen. None of us get out of it alive. And, once you accept that, life becomes a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's a hard thing to struggle with when you're younger, that it's going to end at some point. And, but those are very commonly used arguments. The argument about, sacrificing his son, Jesus was a perfect sacrifice. This is why this was set up. This is not, this is not this was done to help us. This is done out of love. This isn't done to be, the mass murdering thing is another fun one. The genocidal maniac language goes back to Old Testament textual criticism. When you talk about a football team killing and just destroying somebody, the Cowboys destroyed the Washington football team. Notice how I said that correctly. Do you think that the Washington football team didn't get on their flight and go back home? We just defeated them. That's old school. That's like, 2,000 years before BC. That's common war language. That's common war rhetoric. Destroyed there. I mean, that's a very commonly used. If it says destroy, like a mass murder and genocidal maniac, why does the later verses say, and by the way, don't intermarry with the people either? Well, if they destroyed them all, there wouldn't be people there for them to intermarry, would there be? So a lot of these things are very answerable, dude. So those are all very common arguments, and I just gave you a defense that was perfect for each one of them, I think. So,
okay.
I hope that helped.
Well, when I think I think of human behavior, right? And you think the army is probably destroyed, but rarely will they go and kill the women, right? They'll take the women for themselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. But they'll also keep
in the past. In the past,
right? That's a very, like I said, because this is, again, we cannot apply a 21st century mindset to a 3,000 year a 3,000 year BC mindset. There's a lot of things that that we can understand about these people, but you have to really think of things from their aspect and the way that they looked at the world. And I'm not saying that this is contrary to how I look at the world. It's not. I mean, I look at the world the exact same way. But you cannot apply how you can't go, well, this isn't how we do things today. How can these people, like the idea of an oral traditionalist? I as a person can't remember anything anymore. Everything's written down for us. We've become a written culture, and this has done this to us. But think about this back in the day, and this is common knowledge that you had people like you have Old Testament rabbis. I don't mean in the Old Testament times, but people that are even living in the first, second, third, fourth century of the modern era. The common era, as we call it now, but after Christ, that could recite an entire Old Testament. And that's like, that's 3/4 of the Bible as we know it. Yeah. An oral traditional culture, we cannot wrap our minds out around that hardly. I can't, because I can barely remember. I don't remember phone numbers anymore.
Yeah. It's the brain. There is a cognitive bias. I forget what it's called, where your brain doesn't remember it because it knows it can look it up.
Right. It just discards it. It has no need for it.
Yeah. The path of least resistance.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard for us where we have so much information overload in this era versus, I'm so happy to live in an era where we have this much information at our fingertips. I thank God for that. I feel these are very important topics because these are I feel they're woefully overlooked from my side of the view. Like I said, we're viewed as a bunch of wide-eyed idiots, and it's like, dude, sorry, we're the birth of science, man. The Bible claimed the Earth is round thousands of years before the common acceptance of the world being round was accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So, dude, I don't see how any idiot couldn't stand on top of a mountain and not look and see that anyhow. Dude, come on. You've been on top of a high spot and seen the Earth's curve, right?
I don't know that. I mean, I'm trying to think.
You've been on an airplane, but that's a little overkill. But these guys couldn't go on an airplane, but you can go on a skyscraper and see the curvature. So if you have a clear shot of a horizon.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've ever noticed it. Actually, I'm not I believe the Earth is round, so
right.
I've never had a reason to question it.
I
do know that it
idea,
became so the Concorde. That was that airplane that would fly across the Atlantic.
Yeah,
at supersonic speeds. That thing would fly, I want to say, 60 or 70,000 feet altitude. It was really high, and you could see the curvature of the Earth from that very clearly. I think that was the height. I'd have to go double check it, but
that was an amazing airplane.
It was, yeah. All right, back on topic. MM steps in after Butcher is trying to egg this guy on, and he's trying to stop the situation before it becomes too big of a problem. Butcher pushes on, saying, "We should lob a nuke at him, get it over and done with. You know what I'm saying?" MM is telling the gentleman that they're sorry. They apologize. Butcher tells the gentleman to think about it. He's there all day. The gentleman is just flabbergasted and watches Butcher walk away. It's just ridiculous. I think he's just trying to rile this guy up.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to get something out of him.
Well, the more that we discover, I feel that Butcher is at this point, he just appears to be a miserable person, and every chance he's got is going to take it out of somebody to make him feel worse.
Yeah. MM's getting on to Butcher, asking him to pipe down. He's drawing attention to them potentially.
Yeah.
Butcher apologizes, saying he didn't mean to offend MM's inner Black Baptist mom, shouting, "Praise the Lord." He's obviously being sarcastic.
I can tell you a fun story. Again, I'll interject. Growing up in the South is a wonderful thing. As I said, I grew up in a church in McKinney, Texas, First Baptist. We had a sister church in the poor part of town. There's a Black Baptist church, and we switched congregations occasionally. They would come to our church, and we go to their church.
Mm-hmm.
And that was I always just thought that was one of the coolest things about growing up in a small town. You go, a white congregation going to a black church congregation kind of deal, and vice versa.
Would they come and join you, and you would go and join them, or
yes,
literally
it was both. There was one that was kind of a combo, but there was also another one that was just. It seemed like it was, if I remember correctly, it was like we went there and it was their preacher and our congregation, mm-hmm. and they were at our church listening to our preacher.
Mm-hmm.
And
that.
and they kind of they ran the service like they would run the service, and they went to our service basically. We went to their mm-hmm. service, and that was really cool.
Yeah,
it's really amazing. Like I said, I had some amazing experiences growing up here in the South. The South gets a black eye, but dude, I'm sorry, I thought it kind of ruled in this. I was here in the '70s, man. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that story, by the way.
You're welcome.
That's pretty heartwarming. I like that.
No, you're welcome.
So, yeah. MM says, I'm Episcopalian, and there's nothing wrong with having a little church up in you, Butcher counters with, said the bishop to the nun, then asks Huey if he believes in God. What does said the bishop to the nun mean? Like, is that just like a...
I think that's a very sexual innuendo there, isn't it?
That's kind of what I'm getting, but I don't specifically know. Okay.
That would be my guess.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a big disagreement I have with the Catholic Church about the non-marriage thing. That's a big problem they've got.
Mm.
If they could be married, they wouldn't have half the problems they got right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huey responds to Butcher's question. He says he doesn't know. Butcher says, "What? Come off it." Huey says again he doesn't know. He knows that it isn't Morgan Freeman up there or anything, but it can't be random chaos.
Yeah, now that's another thing that we do with another anthropomorphization. Putting human attributes on God. It's the Bible does this in some phrases talking about beholding the work of thy fingers. He doesn't have fingers. So it's this idea that Morgan Freeman being, because we like to picture the old bearded white guy up there. That's a kind of, I think, our common image of God. I don't have that representation of him there. I haven't. To me, it's an all-powerful entity. If you beheld, it's going to evaporate your essence probably. If you beheld him, that's
like in Dogma. You remember that?
Right? Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's as much as I disagree with what they say about the Bible in that movie, I do love Dogma at some points because I enjoy the battle of good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy those kind of movies.
Yeah. Butcher asks Huey if he thinks what happened to his girlfriend was some divine intervention. That's kind of a low blow.
Well, and again, Butcher argues philosophy with the bluntness of your children. I think your children could out philosophize him, dude. That's, bad things happen. I'm sorry. That's just c'est la vie. That is what life is.
Mm-hmm.
My limited French.
Yeah. Gets Butcher to stop pushing Huey. This is too far.
Yeah.
Huey is having a tough time processing what Butcher just said. And then Butcher gets a phone call and he walks off to answer it. Starlight's mom is telling Starlight what was she supposed to say to the teens. Yes, I've had premarital sex. Go nuts. Starlight says she's pretty sure she wasn't supposed to lie to them. Her mom tells her that she's Starlight of the Seven. Millions of kids are looking up to her. She's a shining light to them. Starlight wants to know how she's supposed to live up to that. That's really an interesting question. The weight of being a famous person, particularly when you want to have a positive impact on the world, it must be a really heavy weight to bear because as humans, none of us are perfect, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all, and I'm like you. I think it's especially because she wants to make a positive impact on the world. It's so hard because there seems to be all these preconceptions and preconceived things that her role in this group, it has a very defined role that she is finding out about and not liking. She wants to do something good as opposed to being in the press, being used as a press item, to distract the media, to distract the public. I mean,
right. Yeah, the reality TV
right
side.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's in the next episode. Sorry.
Is it? Is it? Okay.
Yeah,
that's right. Oh my word.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Sorry. Good going.
Yeah.
Coming next week.
Yeah, coming next week. Her mom tells her she will do it because that's the way God made you. You're a miracle. You're my miracle. Put a pin in this one because we're going to come back to it later.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Huey walks up, greeting them and asking how it's going. Starlight tells her mom she'll catch up with her later. MM's listening to this whole conversation through the radio, and he's also keeping an eye on Huey. He's within visual range. Butcher comes up and tells him to watch over Huey. Asks where the he's going, and Butcher tells him to just do it and walks off. No explanation. Right?
Butcher.
Yeah. I feel bad for because he's so, everything has to be planned. Everything is in order.
I will say this, having started now, as I was telling you on the side about starting reading the comics, this seems to be MM's role is most assuredly what we have said it is, which is that being a second in command kind of personality. So that is the role he fulfills in the book as well. You tell him what to do, and then you can walk off and do what you want because MM's going to get it done.
Chain of command.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Starlight is acting a bit upset after the talk with her mom and the events at the round table. Huey asks her if she's okay, and she tells him she's fine, but this place isn't what she remembered. And we've kind of already addressed this. She's seemingly the one that's changed, not so much the environment, right?
Yes.
Huey steps closer to her and says, "Hey." And she kind of has a hopeful look in her eyes. And Huey looks over her shoulder, and he's having yet another hallucination of his dead girlfriend staring at him. Starlight looks in the direction he's looking, doesn't see anything, and tries to get his attention. He looks at her and says, "Hey, can I ask you something?" She says anything, and smiles. She has a very affectionate look in her eyes.
She's such a pretty thing to begin with. And when she puts that smile on, dude, she can melt anybody's heart, I think.
Yep. And that's why this next part is particularly disappointing.
Oh, absolutely.
You
Soul
know?
crushing.
Yep. He asks her if there's any way she could hook him up with one of the Diamond Club passes to see Ezekiel. She looks confused. Obviously.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, she's basically laying it out there for him on a platter to just, kiss her or something, right?
Oh, I know it. Dude, and I'm terrible around women, but even I can read that sign, Even I can see that one.
Yeah, I'm similar. My wife had to push me.
Dude, my late wife was the one that kissed me, actually. She kissed me first. Yeah, I'm terrible, dude. I will tell you, it's older. As I've gotten older, this second time around has been kind of cool. It's been a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Being older, and yeah, it's kind of cool. So never mind. Put a pin in that too.
Yeah. Yeah. He tells her some story about how his dad is Ezekiel's #1 fan, right? Of all the soups.
Right.
Yeah.
Ezekiel.
She's processing this.
Oh, wait. I have to go back earlier in the episode. Did you see, or it may be now, but I think they've already showed it. Did you see the Ezekiel Stretch Armstrong figures?
No, where was it?
Oh, I think it's earlier in the episode when they're walking through a lot of these crowd sequences and, all the folks here at the Believe Expo. And yeah, it's a Stretch Armstrong Ezekiel, brother. It's awesome.
That's
it's
a
great.
Perfect toy for him.
See, my parents gave me not Stretch Armstrong. I got this weird green dude that looked like the Abomination, but he was like an enemy of Stretch Armstrong, and
Okay.
he was cool.
Yeah, the bad guys are always cool.
The bad guys are always
let me
usually cool.
Yeah, they're cooler. Yeah.
A good bad guy always, as we both agree, helps all good and evil stories. You have to have a compelling bad guy. If not, it's not a good story.
Yeah, 100%. We're definitely going to get into that.
Homelander's a prime example. This show is chock full of unlikable people, is it not? I love it.
Yeah, unlikable. What the particular thing is when the danger is palpable.
Yes.
Right? Because while the deep is bad from the perspective, what he did to Starlight and just his general behavior, he's mostly not harmless. Menacing. Yeah.
He's mostly harmless. Yeah.
Yeah. With Homelander, you can't get a read on him. And same thing with the Black Noir. You really have no idea. And then A-Train, there's this kind of moral ambiguity that we've kind of talked about where his priorities are what's leading him to the bad behavior.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I believe so.
Whether it's drug addiction or self-preservation or whatever the case is, right?
Yes. I believe that's correct. He's whatever it is, it's all incorrect and wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Homelander is the one where it's just like it's scary.
Yeah, you can't read that fella at all.
Mm-hmm. After Huey tells Starlight that his dad is Ezekiel's #1 fan, she's thinking about it. She doesn't look too happy.
No.
He asks her what she thinks. Can she pull some strings to get him some tickets? She says she can. It's the least she can do. She kind of sighs, and you can really feel the disappointment coming from her.
Absolutely.
And this may have been obvious to a lot of other people, but the first time I was going through this scene, I was really upset that Huey messed this situation up. Right? Because you want it to work out between them. But on subsequent watch throughs, I realized that when he hallucinated and saw his girlfriend, that was a decision point for him.
Yes.
He decided at that point that the revenge was more important than whatever is going on between him and Starlight.
Agreed. It's and like I said, I always feel real bad for this guy because, I mean, just like you said, right as he's pulling close to her, he has these PTSD moments. And the problem with the PTSD thing, it's not just a matter of seeing things that people kind of forget. People go there mentally right back to that moment. It doesn't matter if it's 20 years from now or whatever, but you're feeling that exact way that you felt at that moment with PTSD. And I mean, I think he's really suffered from it. So all that emotions just come up, and unlike you, those become deciding factors for him. They pop up and they're like, dude, your woman is dead. What are you wasting your time thinking about it for? Get on with the program.
Mm-hmm.
Those are major deciding. Every time he sees her, it's always that kind of same. It's that same kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it really hasn't been that long
Right.
to process what happened.
Not long at all.
And he was very in love with that girlfriend.
Yes.
And yeah, to have her taken away like that, that's a bitter sting that it's not going to go away very easily.
No.
Even if he has somebody like Starlight right there,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even despite that, yeah, you still have to process that stuff regardless. And that's
Right.
just how that's how we're built to process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually, as we are talking, looking online to see if I can find out the answer of season 1.
The answer?
Yes.
The answer to what?
How much time elapses in the season of The Boys?
Oh, I see.
Keep going. I'll find out an answer for us. From what I can see, someone says they think it would be between 1 to 2 weeks, but he says he thinks it's closer to 2 months because of something that is redacted.
Okay.
So I have about 5 words blurred out. I'm going to dig as we continue going because I thought because I'm like, I think me and you are in agreement. I think I seem to think it's like this, I think the first half of the show of what was it, 8 episodes a season? So the first 3 to 4 episodes where we are, it takes place within about 3 to 4 days. Is what I think.
It's only 8 episodes. It's not 10.
Maybe it is 10, but I think it's only 8 episodes a season. I think they're 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're relatively short. We'll only have 24.
Okay.
Again, I'll dig deeper, but it may be 10, but I think it's only 8 for some reason.
Okay.
But so yeah, the first half of that season is over 3 or 4 days, and then I think the second half is a little bit longer, especially because there was something that Butcher said about Translucent when it's next episode that we're going to cover when Translucent, when he's in the bar, when Huey is with Starlight and he pops up and something, hey, well, it seems like Translucent's been missing for a long time. So I think some time has elapsed between both this episode and next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm going to, I believe. So, and I believe that's what one of these people here is saying, and I'll dig a little bit deeper on that as we are going. So cool. I'm done. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. Homelander arrives with much fanfare at the Believe Expo. Now, remember, moments before, he was giving a somber speech to the family members of the transoceanic Flight 37 crash. Here, he's got maximum charm. He's all smiles, tons of energy. He's really playing up the part. He's high-fiving the crowd. He's waving to them. It's saying, God bless you to everybody. He's really playing the part. These are his people. Right?
Yep, they are his peeps. Yes.
Yeah. The second he walks into his tent, Persona shuts off. Persona switch off. and
I love how this actor can do that. Because I know that actors do that as a habit. I mean, that's what their job is. But to move between that, Homelander obviously has these 2 roles. I love watching the actor go from the one to the other. Because, man, when he puts that smile on you, dude, you're like, oh, man, dude, this guy's really cool. I'm not afraid at all. And then it's like, oh, my gosh, I'm terrified. It's like,
yep.
And I love how he puts those 2 on. He's so good at doing it, dude. Anthony Starr. That's his name. Anthony Starr is the actor's name. Good job, Anthony.
Mm-hmm. When he enters the tent, he gets serious and he asks for Madeline, saying he needs to speak with her about his talking points. Ashley is the Vought rep on hand, and she looks scared.
Yes, she does.
She's chuckling nervously and can't find the words to answer him. I probably shouldn't feel this way, but it is a little bit nice to see her squirm a bit.
I feel the same. And I shamefacedly admit that, yes, I feel the same, yes.
I apologize to all the Ashley fans out there.
There's got to be some people that think that, never mind. Let's just continue.
She's the greatest thing ever. They want to be that person.
The show is about Ashley, and they're in some twisted way, and they're in some people's world, I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm. She's the real hero.
Yes, she is the hero, along with the dude from statistics, from crime analytics.
Trevor is cool, man.
Trevor and Annika. Trevor and Annika. Yes, I like Annika.
I sympathize with those people, right? They're data people, right?
Oh, dude, absolutely. They're data people. They're our people. That's our guys. That's our guys.
You got to respect your data people.
Dude, where would the world be without our data brethren and sisterin, I guess. Sorry. And all of you brethren people, thank you. I mean, all inclusive languages I can use here. Thank you. Okay. Continue, please. Stay on target.
Ashley finally tells him that Ms. Stillwell isn't there today. She thought he knew that, but she's here to help him with anything. Homelander holds up one finger, which stops her talking. Doesn't even have to say anything, just holds up one finger. He stands up and he walks up to her slowly, and she looks terrified.
Rightfully so.
He says in a tone that indicates his patience is really short, Ashley, where is she? And she at this point, she's looking down. She won't even meet his gaze.
No.
We go to where Madeline is. She's standing outside of her car. She's opening the door to get her child out of the car seat. And you can hear the sound of Homelander flying in and landing. She turns around and she asks him what he's doing there. He says, "Oh, so you're skipping work now?" She tells him that she's taking her son to the pediatrician. Homelander says, "Maybe reschedule it."
Do you find that to be an unsettling remark, or is it just me?
It is a little bit petty. And talking to your boss this way, I mean, it's very, I don't know the right term here.
I don't either. Insubordinate, I guess, is the
insubordinate is absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely 100% insubordinate. But yeah, I don't know that it's intimidating. It's more just rude and insubordinate, right?
Right. Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I read that scene. I read a little intimidation in that, and sometimes that can be my personal, because of what we know coming. So that might be, so sometimes I have a hard time separating that. That's why I ask you these questions here and there, just to make sure it's like, is that just me, or that's so cool? Very cool.
Well, me, I am historically bad at reading into things.
Oh, me too.
So I don't know if I'm giving you the right answer, but I will do my best.
I am woefully inept at reading into things. I think I think we have discussed this at length, in the past about I read things at such face value. So okay, continue, brother.
Madeline tells him she's already rescheduled it 3 times. She wants to know what the emergency is, and he tells her it's his speech. It reads like corporate mayonnaise. We're talking believe here. These are my people. So when I made the quote earlier, these are his people, this is what I was referring to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
She tells him that he's not just talking to them, but to every Dove and Democrat in Congress who will be watching him on NNC. That's the CNN equivalent that they keep showing. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that.
Yeah,
Is it the exact same typeface and logo style?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's why I made the assumption that it was CNN.
What's interesting is there's also the Vought News channel, which kind of makes me think they're like the Fox News equivalent.
Fox? Okay.
I think so, because they're the ones that had the gunpowder guy on.
Yeah, Gunpowder was unashamedly a Second Amendment enthusiast, was he not?
Yeah. So if it tracks, I believe that's what Vought is theoretically.
Okay, I think you're probably right.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's amazing, dude. I love it. And here's another one more interesting fact. We talked about numbers of soups in a previous episode, and we knew about hundreds, but in the comic there is over 200,000.
That's kind of horrifying.
That's horrifying, is it not?
Is that worldwide or just the United States?
That is worldwide, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's still a horrifying number. That's way, way, way north of what I was assuming. Because if I'm not mistaken, I thought this show spelled out deliberately. Didn't they seemingly lay out like a couple hundred
that Vought had under their umbrella?
Under their umbrella, okay,
right.
So there could still be plenty hundreds, if not thousands, elsewhere, I guess. But
That's quite the discrepancy, though, between a couple hundred and hundreds of thousands,
It is
though,
very
right?
large, but there's also
Yeah.
some really strange bits in the story that make a lot of sense that something just happened. I'll talk with you later off the air about that, but because we'll have to do like a commentary on the comic, maybe. I got no idea.
Okay.
It's different, dude.
Okay.
Cool.
Madeline continues. She says he needs to appear modest and humble. He thinks there's an opportunity here. People are scared and they don't trust Washington or the coastal elite, and they hate foreigners. This is his viewpoint.
Right.
What they want is a little John Wayne frontier justice, and that's
Bring
what
it.
he does. He continues, reminding her that it was him that saved the Flight 37 thing.
After screwing it up.
Yeah, turning that into a win for them. And her response is beautiful. She's like, huh, you're really going to talk to me about saving Flight 37?
Right.
Yeah, very sarcastic.
Didn't mean to jump the gun on my sarcasm.
He asks, well, why wouldn't I? And she's, dealing with the baby, and she's trying to go to this doctor's appointment. She says, can we just talk later? The speech is perfect, and just to trust her, whining to her about her being full of about saying that she wants his input, but she doesn't. And she says, I do want your input. But he says, no, you never did. He's just being a baby.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. And then she says, I do want your input again after he argues, and then asks if they can just talk later. And his response is really cold-blooded. He says,
absolutely.
Why? You going to run off and play strong single mom? She was walking away when he says this, and this causes her, she stops and pauses before she turns around. And then when she finally turns around to face him, he goes, please, that baby is an accessory.
Wow. Tell us what you really think, Homelander.
Mm-hmm. She looks at him for a minute. Then she says, we need boundaries. Then walks away into the pediatrician's office.
Now, this is where the other question, do you think she looks a little worried or scared here? I think she looks kind of scared or worried. It's a little beyond pissed off to me.
I imagine there's some frustration there in dealing with him, right?
Because you want to keep your work and your family separate if you really are committed to your family. I mean, I was always raised that way. I think you're the same way as best you can be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and she's actually trying here, it seems like, by actually taking care of her accessory. But she looks a little, to me, it's like, wow, this guy's just barged right into the middle of her. She may have had this scheduled for months. What does he know? He just requires a ton of maintenance, doesn't he?
He does. There is an alternative potential viewpoint here.
Okay.
And that instead of her being intimidated, this is a single woman, doesn't have a husband in her life. She has been devoted to her career her entire life to reach this level.
Yes.
Okay. Which takes great sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And then outside of the optimal window, she decides to have this child.
Right.
With no support. So she doesn't have a partner. She's raising the child by herself with a job that requires easily 90 hours a week of work.
Right.
So she's not really raising the child.
Yes, we've talked about this previously. Yes.
She's having caretakers raising the child, most likely, right?
I would assume so.
Then the question is there a bit of truth to what he's saying that stings when he says it?
Oh, that could be also because if this baby is being raised by so much of help, they could have got to the pediatrician anytime. She's got the money to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that's a good point. She is taking the time out of her day to take the baby. So maybe, I don't know. That's just an alternative viewpoint that could possibly be going on here. I'm not saying that's definitive. It's all conjecture. They don't ever talk about it, right? But
hey, that's what we're about, man.
Those are some factors. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you that all out respect for all of our single parents out there raising kids. That's a really tough job right there.
I couldn't imagine doing it.
I can't either. I mean, my late wife had kids and I tried stepchildren. That's a hard gig as it was when they were already older. You didn't have to worry about the hard bit. the training them, I
There's
can't
different
imagine
challenges
that.
there, though, right? As like
Absolutely.
stepfather. Yeah.
It is what that was a lot of my problem. They were pretty cool with me for the most part.
Hmm.
It is a challenge, but especially when they're your own flesh and blood, though, there's a lot more. And I mean, I have a lot invested emotionally, but it's still different when it's not your
Hmm.
own. But I mean, I try to care as much as I can, like they're my own.
Hmm.
So, but again, I just want to say to all of our single parents out there, dude, great job, man. That's a tough job, man. That's tough.
It is. My respect.
Absolute.
Butcher arrives at somebody's house. There is a picture of the woman from Butcher's dream and the owner of the house. They're sisters. When the sister opens the door, she looks at Butcher for a while before she greets him. Again, just like
Right.
everybody else, nobody seems happy to see him. She's definitely not happy to see him.
Not happy to see him. No.
Butcher is there because he found out that his wife's family, this is his wife's sister that he's visiting, they've decided to put up a headstone for Butcher's missing wife. They didn't tell him about the ceremony. And this is the first confirmation in this conversation that the woman in his dream was his wife and that
Right.
her name was Becca. So this is kind of teasing out the story of Butcher a little bit.
Yes, very much.
They have a bit of back and forth about the situation. He is not in favor of this action at all. He's asking when they did it, what did they actually bury because they never found a body,
Right.
what was on the headstone. The argument comes to a head when it becomes clear that Butcher is unwilling to give up on his wife. He does not accept that she's gone, will not accept it until they find her or her remains.
Right.
And he brings up the fact that the headstone is just a sick joke because nothing is buried there. This kind of made me think a little bit. Do you think graveyards are more to honor the people who have passed, or are they making the remaining people feeling better?
I think it's for the remaining people, for the most part, to feel better because I think that it kind of combines two things. I think that they feel that they're doing their loved ones an honor by doing this. But it is most assuredly for the living. Like, again, how I was raised so, I never went to a cemetery, but when it was funerals, for like if my grandparents died, I'd go to the funeral and we might see some of our other relatives that were buried out there just because we were there. But we weren't people that ever make trips. Now, I do know people that sometimes will make these annual pilgrimages on the deceased's birthdays and or the anniversary of their death or something like this. I've never understood that because of the way I was raised again. It was there that we were there so you could say goodbye and start the healing process, and then you move on. And again,
Right.
being a Christian, I'm not. That's once you say goodbye, you're not saying goodbye. We're saying we'll see you later. So a funeral doesn't necessarily carry as much sting for us.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is my own objective viewpoint here.
Right.
Subjective viewpoint. Objective, I got no idea.
I guess
Whichever
it
one it is.
depends on how you feel about it.
Sure. I guess I got
somebody
no
else might define it one way or the other.
Right.
The sister says their mom is getting old and the family wanted some closure.
And I do understand them doing a headstone, especially for someone needing some closure if they just cannot say they're gone. I do get it.
Yeah, for them, it's kind of like they are saying goodbye. They're accepting
Absolutely.
the fact that they're gone, but Butcher is
Absolutely.
unwilling to accept this.
He will not accept this.
Right. Yep. So the family's ready to move on with their lives. It's been 8 years since Becca went missing. Neither the cops nor Butcher found anything. The sister assumes she either killed herself or got killed. When she says that, Butcher tells her to watch her mouth. He's very aggressive. She tells him his life isn't the only one that was ruined. Becca was her sister and she loves her, but she's gone and they need this to be over.
And again, I understand that. I do totally sympathize with people. I can't imagine what it's like to have someone in your life. It's one thing to lose someone and have them die or be killed in some way or have them say goodbye and leave, but it's a different thing to just have someone just up and disappear with no physical trace. I cannot begin to imagine how that would hurt.
Yeah. That's bad.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a French movie that I saw. I can't remember what it was called, but this guy is framed for his wife's murder. He goes to prison. He gets out, and then he finds out that she's still alive.
Dude, that's awesome and brutal.
So he thought she was killed. He knew he didn't do it, but he was framed for it. And so that's like an order of magnitude worse than what Butcher is dealing with, right? Because
Dude, that's
Butcher,
harsh. That's
yeah,
super harsh. I need to find this. I need to find this movie.
yeah. I mean, not knowing would be bad, but yeah, I need to try and figure out what it was. It was a kind of a suspenseful thriller because he's kind of unraveling this mystery.
Now, there's another fantastic Swedish or Norwegian partnership with a French company and called The Vanishing. That is also a fantastic thriller about a woman disappearing, a man's girlfriend disappearing on a trip. And then he just kind of cuts to him spending years looking for her. And that's, man, if you ever get a chance to see it, the same director came to America and made the same movie here, and it's dreadful in English. You need to watch the original version. It's called The Vanishing. And it is, I don't want to say a whole lot because I don't want to give it away, because it is a definitely one of the most, it's a top 100 movie of mine. And also, I love suspense and horror movies. So the suspense movie, it's a fantastic suspense movie, man. It's real creepy, really good. I think you'd really like it. It's not gruesome. It's not gruesome or anything like that. It's just really, really, really creepy.
It's interesting when Hollywood producers get involved.
Oh, they just ruin stuff.
Some of the decisions they make, it's like too many hands in the pie.
It is.
Unless you have a director like Christopher Nolan that has enough pull with the studio to say, just shut him up and say, just let me do my thing. You know, you can see the compromises that are being forced on some of these directors. Sometimes they leave the projects and they say, oh, I'm not dealing with it.
And I understand why.
Yeah.
Especially if you have that many people on your back. There's some really good comedies that have dealt with that. I think we've kind of hinted at, like Bowfinger and Get Shorty are two great movies making fun of the film industry that I just personally love. It's got to be a tough industry.
Yeah. When Becca's sister says this last statement about she's ready for this to be over, we kind of see where the driving force behind Butcher this whole time is the disappearance of his wife. And he's trying to figure out what's going on with that scenario. And we don't know this at this time, but it must have something to do with the soups. Otherwise, he wouldn't be driving so hard to go after the soups.
That's right? What I think. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Like I say, it's all this stuff is his all-consuming purpose for living, as far as we can tell. But it is nice to have a little insight finally.
Yeah. MM saw right through this when Butcher came to see him. He said, this is about Becca, isn't it? Remember?
Right.
In that first conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the final thing here before we move on. Do you think Butcher sold his soul to this mission? Because compared to like in his dream, he's like a different person.
Right. You know, and it could be, you know, a lot of times with folks, at least how their people are portrayed in movies and whatnot, you know, they think it is their purpose for living, but it's really killing them in a bad way. It's killing at least parts of them, at least parts of their conscience or whatever. But it's got to take I cannot imagine the toll it takes. But I think from his point of view, I think he sees it as his, you know, it is his purpose for living, because you know what, now I was right. I can continue with this, you know, vendetta and that. So
that point you just made, it's like it gives you an end goal, a reason to live, something to drive for. Right. But in the pursuit of that, you're burning your soul out. And when you're done, there's nothing left for you to hold on to.
That's right.
Because everything that you were is gone, because you had to give it away to get what you needed out of this.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like that old proverb. What is it? It's when you
start vendetta, dig two graves.
Yeah, exactly. You knew exactly where I was going with it.
I know exactly where that one's coming.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump right to the chase. I forgot.
No, man,
yes,
you read my mind.
That recently. That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is why we know each other, why we have a show.
A movie appears on the screen. A man, played by Billy Zane himself, is running from a woman in an alley.
Now, I just watched this week. I think it's one of Amazon's first series called Mad Dogs. Have you watched this? It's only about
No,
eight, 6, 8 episodes, but it's like it's got Steve Zahn and Billy Zane is, you know, in it briefly. But it's a real harsh. It's really dark, funny suspense, and it has a lot of things in it I really enjoy. If you get a chance, you might want to watch it on Amazon. It's real good.
is that the one where the friends go on vacation in
Yes,
some foreign country?
yes, yes. They go to Belize.
Okay, I haven't watched it. I heard about it. Yeah.
It's actually really quite good, and it came. And like I said, I think it's one of the first things they ever made. It's like 2017 or something like that. I'm kind of glad I waited because it was good. But I like Steve Zahn, but Billy Zane is in it briefly for the first couple episodes, and he is. I love. I don't know why I like Billy Zane. I don't. It just reeks of direct to DVD, does it not? I just something about him, and but he seems to have a good personality about it. Later on, we'll see him later on, but it's I think it's funny. I just thought it was kind of funny that the studio is using Billy Zane for a couple of different things.
Two things come to mind when I think of Billy Zane. The first is Titanic, and he's insufferable
Okay.
in that.
I've never seen that.
That's wow. Okay. Well,
I'm sorry. I
it's
have
it's
I'll explain
it's
why.
okay.
Go ahead. I'll tie this together in a second, but go ahead.
The second one is Zoolander,
Okay. I'm
and
sorry. I haven't seen that either. But
okay, he doesn't have a big part in it. I'm gonna set this up for you.
right.
It's I mean, it's a dumb movie. It's got its funny parts though. So Ben Stiller is a male model,
And I do know that about the movie. Yes.
right?
And he's really stupid, isn't he? Like really, really
He
dumb, right?
is, and then Owen Wilson is his main competitor,
Okay.
and they get into it. It is determined that the only way for them to hash it out is to have a walk off.
You mean like the walkway walk off, like
Yes,
runway? I mean a runway, I guess a
it's like
model
a
runway.
duel of walking off. Okay,
Okay.
and Billy Zane is Zoolander's friend, and he's warning Zoolander not to do it, and Zoolander's like, "Not now, Zane," and Zane has to kind of judge the walk off. And I
Okay.
believe David Bowie was one of the people in the audience, if I remember. It's been a
Ooh,
long time since I saw the movie, but those
nice.
are the two things I think of when I hear Billy Zane. I think he was also a
Okay.
superhero in one movie,
The
right?
Phantom. The
Uh,
Phantom.
wait, was it the Phantom?
It's
No,
the
that was Alec
Phantom.
Baldwin, wasn't it?
No, he was the Shadow.
Okay.
Alec Baldwin was the Shadow,
Oh, okay. Forgive me. They're so similar.
and I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna have to say it here. But you know that the Shadow is also part of and also an influence with and alongside our contemporary of the Batman.
Is he?
Yes,
Because he did get trained in some, kind of Tibetan-looking facility
yes,
like Batman did, and yeah, I could see
yeah,
that.
yeah. Very similar. Very, very, very similar. Because remember, the Shadow does some really crazy stuff by bending people's minds, so he
Hmm.
can pull. He does some Jedi mind stuff on them, dude.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men?
The Shadow
The
knows.
Shadow. I saw that in the theater when I was a kid.
I actually had that. I had that DVD because I like it's okay. I'll take any superhero. Sometimes I'll take any superhero movie over no superhero movies.
I would say it was better than the Captain Marvel movie.
Wait. Which Captain Marvel movie?
The new one.
Oh, the one with that Brie,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
You didn't like that? I kind of
No.
enjoyed that. For
No.
some reason I thought it was kind of fun.
Mm. I couldn't get into the
It was
story.
the one I could not get into was the Eternals, dude. I just
didn't
at
even
that
see
point
it. Yeah.
I thought I tried watching. No, I actually tried, and I tried it like two separate occasions because sometimes you think maybe I'm just not into it, and then you're like, okay, I'm pumped up to see it. I want to see it, and then I start watching it. Like I I can't do anything with this movie. It was so unconvincing. I just couldn't buy it. My suspension of disbelief would not engage.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go down the Marvel rabbit hole, I'm gonna reel us back in.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So back to the point that started this. Billy Zane is running from a woman in an alley. The
Billy
woman is
Zane.
being being played by Pop Claw.
Sorry.
Don't do it. Stay on target.
I'm done. I'll apologize. I'm on target.
Between the music and the dialogue, this seems like one of those really 90s run-of-the-mill revenge movies.
Yeah. Like I said, direct to DVD job along with a bunch of other horror movies that are direct for DVD.
Mm-hmm.
Along with every other Adam Sandler movie.
I'm not going to bite. I'm not going to bite. Because I enjoyed a couple of them.
I'm not saying I didn't enjoy some of them.
The later ones, not so much. Yeah.
But for the most part, sometimes he annoys me, but I like him personally. But a couple of his movies I do enjoy.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
We see that A-Train is in Pop Claw's apartment watching the movie. He's holding a copy of the DVD case for the movie in his hands, and it's confirmed that this is Terminal Beauty 3. And this is the one that MM mentioned to her when Huey and him were in the apartment that they were fans of this movie.
Right.
A-Train picks up a teddy bear from a shelf in the bedroom he's in. It's actually a nanny cam. He takes the memory card out and puts it in the TV. The first clip is one of him and Pop Claw on the bed doing the business, and he starts crying as he's watching it. Going back to our conversation in one of the earlier episodes, you mentioned that his cold and abusive behavior towards her seemed like that of an addict, and I can see here that he really did have strong feelings for her.
Right.
And
yeah, you can see it.
I agree that your assessment of the situation, that whatever his addiction or self-preservation is kind of overriding these feelings, that must have had to be some strong feelings to kind of override what he's going through right now.
Think about the fact, he thought he was going to lose his position in the 7. That obviously means more than anything to him. And that's what got him started on this. I'm assuming what started down the Compound V addiction thing was his fear of losing this gig. So, I mean, there's a lot of emotions tied to that as well. And then I think also losing her, I think it's all coming home to him here.
Right. Okay. He accidentally changes the clip and he sees the footage of Pop Claw role playing with her landlord and then killing him by accident. Then he sees Frenchie and Butcher walk in after the incident. He can very clearly see Frenchie's face. He pauses it. He takes the video to our friend Trevor in crime analytics. Trevor runs a facial recognition program on Frenchie. He tells A-Train and Black Noir, there's a team up here.
Right.
Finally, Black Noir is doing something. Trevor tells them that Frenchie has 34 addresses and at least a dozen aliases and wants to know who the hell he is. A-Train says it's something they're investigating on their own. This makes Trevor a little bit nervous. He asks, since when do you guys run down stuff on your own? And A-Train's response, it's great. He goes, Trevor, shut up.
Trevor. I love it, dude.
Back to the Believe Expo. Huey has entered Ezekiel's tent using the Diamond Club pass that Starlight procured for him.
Right.
As soon as he walks in, Homelander addresses him by name. And he's very surprised and scared.
Yes.
Homelander asks if he's Starlight's friend and hands him a drink. He says she got him into the tent. Huey says that. Right. Homelander puts out his hand and says, good to meet you, pal. And he's being his charming self right now.
Yes. Yes.
It's too bad he just isn't like this all the time.
Oh, dude, but he turns on, and I think I've probably said this before, but he puts on this 1,000,000-volt smile, dude, and that guy can do no wrong when he puts that smile on him. All of a sudden, you can believe anything, even though we've seen him do horrible things. All of a sudden, you just want to believe him.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Crazy. Yeah, absolutely.
It's also scary, though, right?
It's both, yes.
Like that people have the ability to do this.
Yes.
Just right to your face, you would never know.
Oh, I know it. It is horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Because even watching it from our point of view, where you see both sides of the coin, when you see him do it, you're like, I'm almost wondering if that's part of the power of his. He's so charismatic,
Charisma.
That
20. He rolled a natural 20 as charisma roll.
The natural 20. You have to do whatever he says.
Yeah. Huey shakes his hand and says, "It's good to meet you too." Homelander asks how Huey knows Starlight, and Huey tells him that they met a few weeks ago. Homelander seems a little surprised by this, asking, "Really? And she got you in here?"
And that's also a revelation of time. I forget. There's a few weeks, so I think that we've had a slight there. So there is some elapsing of time there.
Okay. Yeah, good call. Yep.
Go ahead. Sorry, brother.
When Huey says, "Yeah, I guess she did," Homelander tells him, "This is a pricey ticket, and you must be a special guy."
He's special.
Huey is modest, saying, "No, he's not. He's just lucky to be there." And then at this point, Ezekiel gets everyone's attention. He welcomes them all, and especially he welcomes Homelander, their special guest. They go to another section of the tent. Ezekiel says, "As many of you may already know, Homelander is an ordained minister in Samaritan's Embrace." He goes on to tell your story,
Right.
$5 and
Right. We can all be ordained ministers.
Yeah,
It's not a problem.
yeah.
My uncle was an ordained minister too. So it's funny. But he took himself seriously. Sorry.
Ezekiel goes on to tell the crowd that together they'll be rebaptizing the attendees, Ezekiel's most loyal followers.
Now that's a scary place. And that's Ezekiel's most loyal followers.
Yes, not
Not
the big man.
Christ. Yeah, not Christ or somebody else's followers, but Ezekiel's followers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
There's
they get
an
the
inherent
special
problem.
baptism.
Yes.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
The scene transitions. They're standing on a platform that has an above ground pool set up, and there are stairs leading into and out of the water. Huey's eyes are big. What do you think's going through his mind right now?
Oh my word! I cannot imagine what's going on through that guy's mind. He's thinking, well, also imagine in this same episode, we've had so much happen to the guy. When he arrives there, he's been told he's going to go into this tent and blackmail Ezekiel with blackmail evidence. And then, he arrives here, then Homelander's here, and Homelander's also part of this. I mean, he's got to be feeling just absolutely exposed here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And little training, no training.
No training, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's got a little bit, I guess, because of the fact he has done some bugging. He's bugged Starlight. He's also bugged the Seven, not successfully apparently, but Vought Tower because of the translucent incident. But his training is costly.
His training is on the job training. It's not like a training program.
Right. It's all like you got hired, and then here you are. You're going to learn espionage skills on the job. Just it's like, oh, really? Am I?
Talk about high stakes. Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's awful. Yeah. Okay.
The scene moves on, and Homelander and Ezekiel are standing in the water in their same clothes. They didn't bother changing. We're shown Homelander baptizing several of the attendees, and he does it very gently.
Yes.
You'll see why I mentioned that in a second.
Right.
It's Huey's turn. He's wearing a Billy Joel shirt. And I just want to point that out because he's such a big Billy Joel fan. Nothing special here. Yeah. But as he enters the pool, Ezekiel is speaking. "On this blessed day, you will be reborn a Christian. You will be washed clean of all of your sins." Homelander takes Huey's hands in his own. Huey still has this terrified look on his face. Homelander asks him if there's something wrong. And Huey says, "I'm totally comfortable. Why would you ask me?"
Why would you ask me?
Yeah. Homelander tells him that his blood pressure is 150/90. It's a bit high. And his heart rate's got to be out of control.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Homelander can hear it.
I mean, imagine. Yeah. Well, like we just talked about, all these two things. He's not trained up. He's in the room with these dangerous people. He's here to try and blackmail. And I think he's also concerned about having upset Starlight, who's possibly one of his only really true friends at this point, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. The only person that he really has that close of a connection with now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also, can I make a quick statement about the baptism real fast? As a Christian, I do not believe sin is not washed away by a baptism. It's just a physical saying, "I'm on board." It's what you do when the actual becoming a Christian will wash you. It's just a visual representation of the act of obedience. It is not an actual act that will actually wash you of sin.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for the clarification.
My pleasure.
Mhm.
Now,
So
talk
okay,
about the
no, no, no,
excruciating
no, no, no,
minutia.
no.
I'll
Let me
pull this on
back up.
this one. Sorry.
Let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
How does that play with babies? Because they are not intentionally.
That is a thing that's a big, where the way that's a very Catholic, where they want to sprinkle the babies. Because if I'm not mistaken now, Catholic brothers and sisters out there, if I'm wrong, I am very apologetic about this, but I believe that they can be consigned to purgatory possibly, which is not supported by scripture, but that's the belief, is so you baptize kids. We don't want kids to be baptized until they're able to actually, to me, kids are safe until there's like an age of acknowledgement where you're able to really acknowledge things for real. So kids are safe. I'm not worried about them. You worry when they're 21, I may be more worried about them to make a real confession of faith. But but kids do not need to be baptized. They're safe as far as I'm concerned now.
Well, let me ask you
Us
this
and the
though.
Catholics will argue over this very
Hmm.
much. There's also argument over the dipping and or the sprinkling.
Oh, fully submerged versus
Right.
just okay.
A lot of people want to argue this, and these are not things that are worth arguing, in my opinion. You can believe
Hmm.
what you want. These are not salvation issues because these are irrelevant. These are things that I need to see backed up by scripture. And the reason why I don't think baptism is actually necessary is that there's one of the people crucified with Christ also became a Christian as he's dying, one of the thieves on the cross. And they didn't get down and baptize him and get back on the cross and then Jesus take that guy to heaven. So
Hmm.
that shows that baptism is not necessary. It's a symbol of obedience. It is necessary in that aspect. It is not necessary in a salvific effort.
Okay, so you're with Baptists. Do they believe in original sin?
We do believe in original sin. That does translate, as far as I understand, through all Christianity. Sin is just transmitted through Adam. That the sin nature is imputed through us through Adam's. We have received Adam's nature. We
Okay,
are sinful creatures by
so
by.
if
Go ahead.
by design, okay,
Not by design. We were designed perfectly, and we fell.
okay,
That's the
so
Garden of Eden story. Is that we
right,
were
right.
perfect and we had perfect fellowship, and then we fell by choosing sin. Um, and I know that a lot of people, we were talking about the Dan Brownism stuff, and how the Bible is not anti-women either. You know, while Eve is the one that succumbed to temptation, the Bible also states that Adam was standing right next to her when this is going on. So what kind of dude is Adam to stand there and not say nothing? So he is just as much to blame. It's not all Eve's fault or anything like this. We do not believe that. You
Okay.
know.
And going back to what you said about children, they're okay until
Yes.
like they accept it. So how does it play out for the kids that die like by accident or for something else before they're able to be baptized?
I
Because
believe they're
by
safe.
they're
I believe that they go to heaven.
okay. All right.
I believe that there's, like I said, there's an age of accountability. I do not know what that age is because all children mature differently. There was no set age in the Bible. There's some hints that maybe 20 might be the cutoff, but this is again just this. It's never there's you've seen that some kids just develop differently. So once a child is actually able to understand the gospel and either do with it what they will, accept or not, again, not my problem. My
Mm-hmm.
problem is just to make sure that people know the story and know the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
So but the baptism is, again, as far from the way that I understand it, is not an issue that does anything to save you. It's just, again, it's as a Baptist, it is a symbol of my obedience to Christ and saying, hey, I'm a Christian now. So I have been rebaptized recently. Once I joined this church, I moved here to this town. I didn't have to get baptized, but I wanted to because it's like, hey, new church, new town, might as well just get rebaptized. And they obliged me. So it was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. I guess the next, you said it was about 20 years old, or it could be variable depending on the person,
Right.
right? But
Right.
I guess my next question would be, teenagers are capable of some really horrific dude. So like
Absolutely.
would the expectation be that if they're old enough to do that really bad stuff that they understand what they're doing is bad and they're committing sin by doing that?
I think so. I think that there's a big understanding that most of us. Do you know what the word conscience means?
I mean, I don't
I mean,
know that.
it means with knowledge. It's actually, when you break it
Okay.
down, the two words, science means knowledge, con means with. It's with knowledge. So much of what we do, kids do a bunch of stuff that's mean and inherently, but we don't teach children the selfish nature. You never had to teach your children the word mine, did you?
No,
Mine, that's mine.
no,
See,
no.
that's an inherently, somehow we have this nature in us, a selfish nature. And
Mhm.
that is what we tie back and attribute back to the original sin nature. That is our sin nature. It's not a giving nature, it's a taking nature. And then once you get that, but there comes a point when you realize that these are wrong things to do, and whether you continue to pursue these things or not. Now, when you become a Christian, there's a big difference. Do you continue to do good? If you're a Christian, you don't want to continue to try and willfully do bad. But I'm not saying that we don't sin. I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm a human. I'm a sinner. I'm a sinner, but I'm a saved sinner. Versus, I acknowledge that fact. I still do wrong things, but I try. If I do, I try and acknowledge it and confess. I do not confess to a priest, but I confess in prayer, kind of deal.
Okay.
So that's where we also differentiate between the Catholics, is we do not believe in confessing to a man.
Okay.
So
All right.
cool.
Huey again comes up with a really good excuse here. He says he's just afraid of water.
He is good with the excuses, dude.
This is like the third time that he's come up on the spot with just this amazing excuse.
Yeah, he's good, dude.
Totally viable. Yeah. Homelander tells him not to panic. He's got him. He asks Huey, do you accept the Lord, our Father, as your savior and Jesus as his son? Huey thinks for a moment, then looks at Homelander and says, yes. Homelander says, then I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He dunks Huey with quite a bit more force than he did with the
Yes.
other attendees. And this is why I pointed out that he did it very gingerly with the other ones.
Yes.
There's a lot of care
He's
in how he
very
did
yes.
it. He slams Huey into the water. And then the camera shifts underwater to Huey's perspective, and Homelander's holding him underwater longer than necessary. He's actually pushing him underwater.
Well, that's a good 5-10. Well, I say it's probably not 10 seconds, but it feels it's not a dunk. It's a hold.
Right. And it's enough for Huey to take in some water as he comes up coughing. Now, I had to make a note here.
I love this.
We went swimming one time, and one of my children kind of got some water in, and he was coughing, and he says he got some water in his systems. And we have adopted this. It's such a great saying.
I love it. I will adopt this as well because I like that.
Oh yeah, he has coined a number of phrases. Another one that we picked up is when he was young, he didn't have a concept of liking things. He only knew about loving things. So if he didn't like something, he would say, "I don't love that." And so we just I don't love that.
I don't love that. That's awesome. That is a really I don't love
my
that.
friends say it nowadays.
That's wonderful. I will join your list of friends on both of those. I'll get some water in my systems, and I don't love that.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot of things tomorrow at work to say that I don't love that.
Homelander is smiling at Huey and pats him on the back. And I think he held him underwater because he knew that Huey was scared of water. What do you think?
I think so. Absolutely.
Just dirty, man.
He's just malicious. Absolutely malicious.
Yeah. I don't know if it was you need to toughen up type of scenario, or he's just being one of those people that wants to see people suffer. I don't know.
I just with Homelander, dude, it's even where we are in season 2 and what we know about him, I still can't answer a lot of those questions about him.
Yeah.
He is an enigma without a doubt.
Right. The attendees are drying off after the baptism ceremony, and Homelander is walking out. He thanks them all for allowing him to be a part of this beautiful occasion. Everyone has left, and it's just Huey and Ezekiel. Huey tries to get Ezekiel's attention, and Ezekiel says he has a packed schedule and tries to walk out of the tent. Huey says he understands, but he needs Ezekiel's guidance. Then he points up and says he needs Christ's guidance. Ezekiel turns around and he's a little bit impatient. He says, "What is it?" Huey gets out his phone, and it is at this point that he realizes it was in his pocket when he got baptized. It won't
Right.
turn on. And he's frantically like beating it against his hand. Nothing's happening.
Right.
He thinks quickly again.
Dude, Huey is really quick on his feet in these scenes, is he not?
Yeah. This scene really impresses me with him.
Absolutely.
He says, after thinking for a bit, he says, "You me." And Ezekiel says, "What?" And Huey says, "Yeah, in that private soup club." And he references the address and he calls it Secret Lair. Ezekiel begins to back away, saying he doesn't know it. Nope. At this point, it's going to get weird.
Really weird.
But I have to quote it because the stuff Huey comes up with here is hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It is. It's masterfully hilarious.
Yeah. To set the scene, the whole time Huey is talking here, Ezekiel is backing away and he's continually saying, nope. And he's denying it. And that wasn't me. So I just want to go into what Huey says without interrupting it with what he was saying, Ezekiel. I'm quoting Huey here. "There were 3 of us, oiled up, and you wrapped your stretchy arms around me, and it was so hot. And your was so perfect and long and stretchy. And you played my butt like jazz."
Oh man.
"With poise and skill and willingness to improvise."
Have I ever thanked you enough for the fact that you read this stuff online for us? Because I won't swear or cuss. Thank you.
I mean, I think I kept it together. I didn't.
You kept it very clean. That was very nicely done.
Ezekiel nods for a moment. Then his right hand shoots out and stretches at least 10 feet to reach Huey and clamps down on his neck. And he's slowly walking up to Huey and he's continuing to choke him. The noise his arm is making as he's coming in, it sounds like 2 rubber balloons being like just twisted against each other. It's really, it actually, it sounds good.
It does. It's funny.
Yeah.
Do you know what that's what's funny? I spent a long time looking into this. Do you know what you call that when your job is to find sound effects and do that stuff for movies and shows and whatnot?
I'm sure I've heard it in the past, but it doesn't come to mind right now. What is it?
It's the Foley artist.
Yeah.
Foley artist is the person that records all those things and goes around and finds weird sound effects. So we have great sound effects in our movies, and that includes walking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it includes everything in a scene has to be piped in at some point, so you have absolute control over it.
Yeah, and that's one of the criticisms of Christopher Nolan's movies. Some of his dialogue seems bad in terms of the recording quality.
Lately, since Dark Knight Rises, his movies have become, I call it's his use of extremely dynamic sound from very quiet to very loud, and it overpowers. They said in that new movie in the theater, Tenet, the people couldn't understand what was being said. When I watched it at home, I had to put the subtitles on just to understand what was being said.
We pretty much always have the subtitles on 100% of the time in our house.
And I get that because you're keeping it down for the kids and whatnot. Right. I get that.
But you could not have understood a lot of what was said in that movie without them. No. I agree. And I think it's because of his way of filming. It's all very practical filming, right? So I think he probably wants to try and get the sound of the individuals, the actors, as they're doing it, right? So in the case of Bane, which was the first case where this was bad, you really couldn't hear it through his mask, so they had to re-record a bunch of his stuff externally, and it just sounded rough. And then the same thing with Tenet, they had those masks on.
Have you seen the South Park? You know, South Park always has an episode for everything, right?
You know, I think I stopped watching after like season 7. So
word.
That's a long time ago.
That's a lot, man. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Now this is they wear the mask and they talk like Bane a lot of times because they think that everyone keeps ordering things from Amazon and all the men are convinced that the Amazon man is having an affair with their women because the Amazon man keeps coming to town, but they keep ordering things from Amazon too. But they all start dressing up like Bane and start beating up the UPS man. They talk real terribly. It's like, oh, Mr. UPS man. What are you doing in our town, Mr. UPS man?
Oh, man.
But yeah. It's magical, South Park, dude. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to send you. Every one of these episodes, I guess I have to need. I'm gonna have to. We're gonna have to put them in the descriptions at some point. Maybe not. We
In
won't
this
go that far. But
episode, South Park episode 57 was referenced.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. We won't go that deep, people.
Yeah.
You're on your own. You either love South Park or you don't, and you can find this stuff. It's easy.
Ezekiel says, "You come in here and try to talk to me like this. You are a filthy, filthy liar. You are unclean." Coming from him, this is great.
Right.
Really,
Absolutely.
Huey manages to get out that he has a video of the three of us sucking and and if Ezekiel doesn't let him go, his friend will put the video online. Ezekiel asks what Huey wants. Is he there for money? You want money? Huey asks about the boxes he is shipping labeled as polio vaccine, but they're not really polio vaccines, but compound V. Ezekiel says, "Who the hell are you?" Huey tells him,
he looks like a biker, doesn't he? It's like Guy Fieri and a biker mixed together.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Huey tells him he wants to know everything about them, where they're going, and how many boxes he ships. Ezekiel says, "No, they will destroy me." Huey says, "Who? They? Vought?" When Ezekiel doesn't respond, Huey tells him this is how the situation is going to go. And this is the part that really impresses me.
Oh, absolutely.
He says, "You're going to tell me, or that video trends #1 on Twitter tonight. Also, you're going to stop the pray the you-know-what away." He finishes with, "Anyway, it's your choice." We have to recognize his performance, right? He's quick thinking. He recovers when his cell phone went down. The persona he embodies when he's telling Ezekiel how things are going to go, he's very assertive and dominant. And it's nice to see this change from kind of his uncertain and unconfident self.
Absolutely.
And he has risen to the occasion again, just like he did with the translucent situation. And I'm not saying these are honorable acts. Murder and blackmail are not to be commended, but he is performing the role that he has taken on as part of this mission. He's contributing as a team member.
And I agree. And I, like you, enjoy seeing him rise to this occasion. I mean, it's wonderful seeing this guy who has moved from this one horrible situation to, I mean, even from the very beginning of this situation, he was so uncomfortable, to being in control of the situation is really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Outside, MM is walking the expo grounds, and he receives a phone call from a number he doesn't recognize. It's Huey calling from a phone that he borrowed. And I have to give props to for attention to detail again. Glad it wasn't his phone that was wrecked in the tent.
Right. Nicely done, boys. Thank you.
Huey tells MM that the blackmailing wasn't a piece of cake. He says, "It's weird. It's scary. You wind up just saying." MM says, "Yeah, but did you get him to talk? What did he say?" Huey says Ezekiel told him Samaritan's Embrace takes boxes of compound V and ships it to hospitals all over the U.S. The latest one is being shipped to the NICU, that's the Newborn Intensive Care Unit, at Mercer Hospital. MM smiles. He tells Huey he's a natural. He says, "You're like the Rain Man of people over." Huey laughs uncomfortably. He says, "That's not a compliment," and then he hangs up on him.
It's not a compliment. I love that dialogue, and it's just MM is so great. But that's great dialogue. That's not a compliment. It's great.
Yeah, he's a little frazzled. I think he's coming down off his adrenaline high.
Yeah, absolutely. But wonderfully done, Huey, though. Great job.
Yes. Butcher is at the graveyard. He's looking at a headstone. He has a sledgehammer. It's the gravestone for Becca. They did put Butcher's last name on there, which is Butcher. So she was.
That is an expensive headstone.
Yeah. It was very fancy.
I've paid for a headstone before, and a small placard is like $3,000. That's a probably 20 to 30 grand headstone, dude.
Wow.
Yes, that's like a car.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not cheap, but that's unbelievable. Yeah.
He takes the sledgehammer to the headstone, destroying it. The groundskeeper comes over. He's yelling at Butcher, and Butcher tells him, "Cool your jets, love. It's not a hate crime." MM calls Butcher and updates him on the situation. Butcher says he'll meet MM at the hospital in half an hour. Back at the Believe Expo, Homelander is on the main stage. He's giving a speech to the crowd. Madeline's watching from her office. She's watching it on the TV. He tells the crowd, A terrible tragedy struck the nation this week and says, let's not mince words about this. We were attacked. America was attacked. He says some people want him to come out here and speak empty platitudes to the crowd, empty corporate talk, but he doesn't want to do that. It's at this point that Madeline realizes he's going off script. Homelander says he can't do that because he believes the thing God wants him to do is get on over there, find the filthy bastards that masterminded this, whatever cave they're in, and introduce them to a little thing called God's judgment. The crowd's cheering.
They're fired up, dude.
He repeats, that's what he thinks. It sounds like an American thing to do. It sounds like the right thing to do.
Would that be an American thing or the American thing to do?
The American thing?
American thing. I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
I am. We've stated we are conservative, so we are joking. So,
just a quick clarification. I'm kind of more right than left, but I have views on both sides. So I'm not just like a hardcore conservative. I just like
I tend to be more, like I said, I actually tend to be one of those guys that leans so hard right that I'm more libertarian. But
yeah, I'm fiscally conservative.
I'm fiscally conservative, and I used to be more socially liberal when I was younger, but I've come about and become more socially conservative. And I'm also a big fan of states' rights. So that's why I'm a social conservative that way. If let your own state figure that stuff out.
Yeah,
that's kind of my belief. And you and I think we've talked about even earlier this episode that I tend to want to let people to do their own thing and hope that, because I do understand we do need government to kind of keep us together and unified to some extent. I understand this.
Yeah,
I'm not an anarchist.
My big issue is I don't think they're efficient. I don't think they're using the tax dollars they collect in a efficient manner. I don't want to give them any more because I don't trust that they're going to use them efficiently.
Well, my money. Well, the money thing for me comes from a long line of being raised up in a gas business. And a lot of people forget, I don't know if you remember about 10 years ago, there's a big thing in the media about Exxon making they made their biggest profit ever. It was like $2 trillion and everyone's losing their mind. And what this boils down to is that the company made a penny per gallon off of the product that they go out, they dig up, they export, they import, bring it in, clean it, and then sell it. And then they make a penny per gallon. And everyone's up in arms about it. But the government, the state and feds both make over $1.50, I believe. Now, this is when gas is in your normal range of what I call under $2. When gas is normally under $2, the government is making $1.50 off that product, and the company is making a penny off that product. That is not right. And I've always been. That goes same thing. Even though I'm not a fan of liquor and or cigarettes, these are products that the government has nothing to do with, and they make so much money off this product that they have nothing to do with. And that always offends me deeply. So there's my thing with the government. So yeah, they are woefully inefficient. I agree.
Yeah. And I think that's always been the crux of my issue is just austerity measures are not, they're not a thing anymore.
And I think you and I are also big believers that if people saw that, I'm a big believer in also term limits for our Senator Congress people.
Absolutely.
Dude, we will never see any change that matters in this country as long as people are concerned with holding on to their authority or to their power versus, if they were afraid they were going to lose the gig in 8 to 12 years.
And notice how none of the stuff we're talking about is one side or the other. It's general. Right?
It's general. It goes all directions as far as I'm concerned in this discussion. It cuts on both sides, dude.
Yeah. Agreed.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
He says, but no, he has to wait for Congress to say it's okay. The crowd boos. He says he answers to a higher law. He asks the crowd, wasn't I chosen to save you? The crowd cheers. Starlight is at the speech. She doesn't like the tone this speech has taken on or the way the crowd is responding. Homelander says, is it not my God-given purpose to protect the United States of America? The crowd starts chanting his name. He holds his arms out to his sides and lifts off the ground, hovering over the crowd. He quotes Psalm 58:10, "The righteous shall rejoice when he sees the vengeance, and he will bathe his feet in the blood of the wicked." I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on the usage of this passage in this context.
I don't. His usage is not. I don't find it to necessarily be incorrect. A lot of people are sometimes horrified by some of the things they find in some of the Psalms, but these again are. You have to understand the Psalms are like the Jewish song book and praise book. So some of the Psalms can be kind of bloody and mean and calling down curses on their enemies. So that's kind of how this one reads. But it's I don't think he uses it wrong, but he's really good at reading the crowd. I will give Homelander that. He's really getting the crowd pumped up here, and the quoting the scripture to this belief. You don't have to say anything. You can drop anything in there and drop a scripture number, and this people's going to eat it up in this crowd.
Yeah. And at this point, he's got them all riled up already anyway, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got them all stirred up with that good war rhetoric. Oh, we were attacked. That gets folks fired up real quick.
Yeah. Madeline is mad. She's shaking her head and says, "Mother."
That's one of the few times I think so far we've seen her lose her temper.
Yeah, but she is by herself, I'm going to point out.
Yeah, but even then, it's like she does such a good job of keeping her. She doesn't go breaking a bunch of stuff. She just kind of, I'm always impressed with her control.
Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, hotheads don't get to that level.
Yeah, right.
You kind of have to have some level of control to deal with just the day-to-day of running a big company like that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We are introduced to a new character. She's painting a wall when she hears a knock on the door. It's Maeve. She's in uniform. The woman asks what she's doing there. Maeve tells her she was stopping a mugging nearby and that it's good to see her. They both look emotional. Maeve asks if she can come in, and the woman reluctantly allows her to enter. Maeve asks about a pet named Freckles, and the woman tells Maeve Freckles died 2 years ago. Oof. The woman says she's kind of busy, so Maeve should give her a call later and to call first next time before coming over. Maeve addresses this woman by her name, Elena. She says she doesn't have to be like this. Elena says Maeve showed up out of nowhere asking about the damned cat. She also says Maeve has been drinking. Maeve denies it, but she is kind of acting a little sloppy. She's kind of slurring her words a little bit and kind of unsettled, not balanced on her feet.
Yeah. And I don't blame her after the stuff with that memorial thing they went to for that flight 30. Was it flight 37? Was that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maeve denies it. Elena says Maeve isn't going to meetings anymore. And I guess she's an alcoholic.
Yeah. Some kind of addict. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some kind of 12-stepper.
Is there a soup version of that would be special for them?
Well, could you imagine how, I would imagine those guys need a lot of counseling because of the fact that they think they can do whatever they want. You'd have, so I would imagine they need some kind of stuff to keep them down to earth, but they're not doing a good job of it.
Mm-hmm. Maeve plays it off as water under the bridge. There's a moment of uncomfortable silence, and Maeve says she misses her. Elena says, "You don't get to say that to me," and asks her to leave. Maeve says she hasn't seen her in years. Elena says she sees Maeve every day. Every time she walks through Times Square, turns on the TV. Elena says, "I'm out of your life. You never left mine." This kind of makes me think, I wonder if this happens for normal people if they get involved with somebody famous. Not that happens very often, right. But I can imagine that's a difficult situation to deal with where you're just seeing them all the time. They're moving on with their life and you're constantly reminded of them. That'd be kind of hard.
I can't imagine how hard that would be. Mm-hmm. Especially as big as the Seven are. I mean, where they're on television and billboards everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't, in that universe, you can't look anywhere without seeing those folks.
Right. Yeah. Maeve backs up. She seems a little unstable and starts to apologize. Elena stops her, saying she doesn't want the apology. She asks her to leave. She wants her to go back to her ivory penthouse where she can drink and whoever she wants. She tells her to go back to Homelander. Maeve says she can't go back. It's too hard. Elena asks what happened. Maeve says she keeps thinking about all those people and starts crying. Elena hugs her and says it'll be okay. Maeve will figure it out. She always knows what to do. Elena is still trying to ask what happened when Maeve tries to kiss her. Well, she actually does kiss her.
Right.
Elena pushes her back and tells her to stop and walks across the room from her and asks her to talk to her and tell her what happened. Maeve begins to leave, saying this was a mistake. Elena tries to stop her and get her to talk to her, but Maeve leaves anyway. I guess that relationship right there.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Homelander relationship was after this.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That would be that does. I think that does track better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She probably was with Homelander on Rebound, maybe.
Right. This whole concept of Maeve being afraid. Remember, Homelander was saying, if I ever thought, or he said, I couldn't imagine you being with anybody else.
Right.
You remember that?
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be before. So you're right. This is before. This is before he met her, or before they were. Yeah. Well, she and so maybe this could be maybe before she was even known as Queen Maeve, possibly.
That's also, yeah, that could be true. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe she hadn't developed her powers or something at this point. But I guess that's not really ever divulged. Maybe it is in the books, but it's not yet divulged in the show.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really talk a whole lot about Maeve. I mean, we do cover her in some aspects, but she's covered differently.
You had a note in here that I did not know. I thought was really interesting. Did you want to talk about that?
Oh, about Philip and knowing the guy from knew what I knew about being famous. Yeah. So back, but right after they had just made it famous, my drummer actually lived in the same complex as him. And so these guys had just made their first platinum album, Pantera had. And so I palled around with them and played in a side band with Philip for a little bit. And dude, he was really cool, real fun to be with. Dude, the guy was just a truly, man, really, well, first off, the guy was real smart. So he had, real funny, but he had a bunch of people following him around doing whatever they'd tell him to do. And he and I got along because I didn't like kiss up to him a lot.
Mm-hmm. You treated him like a normal person.
I just treated him like a normal person, and we had a lot of things in common. And like I said, so much so that he at one point was kind of like hinting that he would like. He goes, "Man, if this group wasn't a family that I walked into, because it kind of was." He was kind of would like to have pulled me into that group because you learn. I'm a quick learner and just had and also I didn't kiss up, and he always appreciated having someone around that would keep him level headed. I guess I had a good time hanging out with Phil, but it was funny because I'd go to some places with him a couple times, and he was recognized. And it's got to get old. I can't imagine it's having a bunch of people just agreeing with everything you say all the time, because that's what all these people that hung around him did. Mm-hmm. It was really weird. Very, very, very strange. I had a great time because he respected me, so I was all good. So I had no problem with the guy.
When people are afraid to tell you what they really think,
yes,
that's generally not a good sign.
It's not.
Yeah.
And you run into that with people with fame that's why they get so weird, is because no one will ever check them.
Mm-hmm. It's not just fame. It's like executives.
Yeah.
They got a bunch of yes men under them. People are afraid to lose their jobs, so they don't say anything. And then it's just, there is a cognitive bias. It's the bandwagon effect, I guess.
Right.
No, it's not bandwagon. Which one is it? I was writing all these cognitive biases down the other day. Right. It's one of them where people are afraid to speak up. So it might be the bandwagon effect.
It could, it sounds like you want to go along, get on the bandwagon, so you just kind of go along. So that's why bandwagon sounds right.
Yeah, I'll have to look and see if that was the right one. But either way, we go back to Frenchie in his apartment. He receives a call from Sherry. That's his attractive helper that helped blow up his last residence.
Again, I just have to say that gal is really, really attractive.
Is it her eyes? Is that what
she's got? Those, she's got that black hair and those real pale blue eyes combined together. That's that's a big deal. I dig that.
Yeah, the eyes really stick out. Yeah,
the eyes did.
She's warning him that they are coming for him. She spotted Black Noir outside her apartment. He perks up and asks what location, which addresses do they have. She tells him if they got to her location, all of them. She then hangs up, smashes the phone, and leaves. The stakes are increasing. We're taken to Mercer Hospital. Butcher and MM are walking through the hospital. Butcher expertly lifts an ID off an on-duty nurse as he's kind of passing by. She doesn't even notice.
He's great.
Mm-hmm. MM is asking Butcher to give him a little professional courtesy and tell him where he disappeared to. Butcher, the smart that he is, says, I just had to pop down to the shop. I was running a bit low on mind your own business.
Wow.
You know, MM does
Wow.
not deserve that sass.
No, man,
He,
he is. Man, Butcher is brutal. He's worse to those that are closest to him.
yeah,
He's dreadful. I don't think we've seen him be good to anyone except in a flashback. I guess that treating that he was a little bit nicer to that woman, but that was that was the sister in
I mean,
law.
he still was kind of intimidating
He's
to her. He's like,
hostile though.
watch your
Yes.
mouth, you know, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
yeah, I mean, he
So
was
yeah,
upset,
he's
but he was very aggressive. Yeah.
very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Butcher's phone rings. It's Frenchie. Frenchie is updating him on the situation. He's been burned. He's packing to vacate the safe house as quickly as possible. Butcher asks him how he got burned, and Frenchie doesn't know. Butcher asks about the rest of them. Frenchie says Butcher's concern for him is very sweet. He's being sarcastic. He says the rest of the team may or may not be burned, but so far they're just hitting Frenchie's places. He says he's taking off, and then he asks what to do about the Japanese soup girl. Butcher says, leave her. Frenchie doesn't like this. He's visibly frustrated. He tells Butcher God knows what they'll do to her. Butcher says soup on soup violence isn't our concern. Frenchie tries to push back, but Butcher repeats himself, telling him to leave her. And then he hangs up on Frenchie. Frenchie looks at the girl, and she can tell something's up. She looks concerned because he's frantically, arguing on the phone, packing and all that, and she knows something's going down. Butcher updates MM on the Frenchie situation, saying he's been burned. Then they continue on to the NICU. They use the badge he stole to gain access. Back at the Believe Expo, Starlight is having her makeup done before she goes on stage to give a speech. Her mom is going into some story about how Starlight saved the day at some Luck of the Irish pageant. The power went out and Starlight lit the room with the glow from her hands. She finishes.
Her mother is dreadful, and the more you get to know her, she's just dreadful.
Yeah, she finishes this catchphrase. The show must go on. That's like the third time that she has said this in scenes that we've seen her. And I would like to point out, this is what Starlight heard in her head when the Deep was trying to get her to do that thing, right? This exact thing her mom said is what she thought of at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty messed up.
It is.
That's dark.
The makeup artists are kind of paying attention to the mom, and one of them says, "That's so sweet." I don't think they're really paying attention. They just kind of,
absolutely
paying
not.
attention to doing the hair
Smile
and
makeup. And nod. Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah.
Ashley shows up, the wonderful Ashley, telling Starlight she has 15 minutes before she goes on stage. Starlight asks the makeup crew and Ashley to leave her alone with her mother for a minute. After they leave, Starlight tells her mom she can't do this. The mom asks if she's sick. Starlight tells her it just doesn't feel right. The mom asks what that means. Starlight tells her that she thought that being at the expo would feel like it used to, but it doesn't. It's changed, or maybe she's changed. She tries to tell her mom what has happened to her in the last few months, but fails to get it out. She's just shaking her head. This is the second time she's tried to tell her mom.
Yes. And yeah, mom is just great job, mom.
Mm-hmm. She finishes telling her mom to tell them she's not going on. And it is at this point right here that her mom proves to be everything I knew she was. Yes. I suspected it, but she proves it.
And I'm always kind of mildly shocked at this point too myself. So
the mom says, "Honey, I've waited 23 years for this. I've waited." Starlight tells her this isn't about her. The mom says, "Isn't it?
Isn't
it? I kept your secret, scrimped by selling houses, took you to all the soup events. Please, all my friends are going to be watching on TV. Please." It's wonderful. The parents, like this whole thing of look at what my kid did. It's just let them be themselves. I don't understand this whole getting clout through your children.
Pageant parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
I understand parental pride, right? You watch your
I do
through your guidance. they grow into things that you
Yes.
couldn't imagine they could be, right?
You want them to be, when your kids turn out to be adults that are successful, and sometimes a lot of kids think that a lot of times success means being able to live on your own. It doesn't mean that you're making tons of money. It doesn't mean a lot of things. It means just being able to live on your own. That's successful. You did a good job.
Yeah.
You can get your kid out to be able to live on their own. Good job.
Yeah.
But these parents here, these are like the Ramses. We've talked about John Benet Ramses. That's some really weird folks, man.
Yeah. It goes back to Frenchie. He's rapidly packing and talking to the Japanese soup girl at the same time. I wish she had a name, because saying Japanese soup girl every time, we need a code name for her.
Well, we can just do what the comic does. We'll call her the female for right now, because we will find out a name.
Female. That's so much better.
It's the comic book just calls her the female. It's not much better. It's not, but that's what they say.
All
right. I know her. It's funny. It's her name. She's Karen Fukuhara. I like her. Did you know that she was Katana in the first Suicide Squad movie they made?
No, I did not.
She is Katana in that, and I've seen that one. It's a very forgettable one. But unlike the new Suicide Squad, which if you said you have HBO Max, you need to watch that, dude. It is really wrong. Oh, did you? Okay, so you need to move on to Peacemaker then, if you haven't.
Yeah, I haven't watched Peacemaker.
Yeah. Peacemaker is outrageously funny because it's his unlikableness that makes the show so good.
Okay.
It's really funny because he's disgusting. He's dreadful. And it's in this show. And you're like, the more you watch it, he's funnier as you go. It's hilarious, dude. It's amazing. I can't wait to hear your reaction.
Mm-hmm. I liked Idris Elba in the second one.
I love that, dude.
Yeah.
He's great in that, man. But the whole Suicide Squad is so much better.
I don't know that there's a movie. I'm trying to think of a movie where I think I've liked him in everything I've seen him in. He's probably one of my favorite actors, honestly.
I haven't seen him in a whole lot, but everything, I love that dude in him, man. I love him. I can't think of anything I've seen it. And like I said, I haven't seen him in a whole lot other than the Marvel, which is, that puts him in 6-8 movies already just by putting him in the
gunslinger in the Dark Tower.
That's right.
I never saw that.
I had heard word that originally that they were bandying his name around for the new 007.
I would have been down for that.
Dude, I would have been down for that.
Yeah.
I'm not down for him being Roland in the Gunslinger.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean,
it doesn't really make sense. I mean, it would, if it, I could see a Hispanic person maybe, right? Because that vaquero vibe, there is some of that a little bit.
Absolutely, that you're right. There is some of that, but but Stephen King himself spells it out in one of those books that it's based on Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. It's like the faded out poster he saw in the old movie theater of Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. So it's just technically like a faded out, meaner looking version of Eastwood.
I always pictured him as something like that, kind of like a wiry cowboy.
Yeah.
Right. Like the Marlboro Man,
dude.
Maybe a little bit skinnier, because the Marlboro Man was kind of a more muscular, not as wiry. Yeah.
He needed to be thinner. Yeah. And wiry. Cause because that's hard living, man. Roland lived that's a hard life. Roland lives, dude. Hard.
Yeah. All right. Back to the Japanese soup girl. She knows something is wrong. She's watching Frenchie. She's standing at the limit of the chain as far as it will let her come into the room.
I love the look in her eyes too. She's got a lot of emotion in those eyes, doesn't she?
She does. That's all she has to work with, because she can't really.
All she has to work with, right?
Talk. Yeah. In this role, yeah. Frenchie is verbalizing his feelings. One quote here really stuck with me. I'm not going to do a French accent because I'll probably butcher it, but it sounds better with a French accent. He says,
it does.
I've been ordered to leave you here for them to find. And Monsieur Charcutier, he knows I'll comply. That's how he sees me. Like this mad bastard, only good for hunting or killing, Like a gun, he takes me, he points me in a direction and fires. It's not who I am. It's not who you are either. We are the same, you and I, like eggs. Hard on the outside, soft inside. Or pineapples, perhaps. I was like, what? What is he talking about? But it's interesting. The reason I like this quote, beyond the funny ending, was the way he looks at himself versus how Butcher uses him, right, in his role.
Yes.
right?
Well, I mean, Frenchie's very complicated, and Butcher does wield him bluntly, but Frenchie is he's very sharp. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like Butcher could use him better.
Yeah.
But yeah, Frenchie is very complicated. I love that dude.
Mhm.
Dude, let's just say again, all the boys are very lovable fellows. Even though Butcher is such a hateful curmudgeon sometimes, there's something that kind of starts becoming a little bit more lovable about him as we go on, I think. Maybe. I can't remember.
I don't know, man.
He's always pretty harsh.
Because at first it's just kind of a funny, dark humor, but as your love for the companions grow and he treats them so badly,
Yes.
it's almost like a reverse for him where the funniness doesn't make up for him being an asshole to all your favorite characters, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's
Agreed.
how I
I
feel
agree with
about it,
that.
at least,
Yeah.
because the funniness doesn't cut it anymore. You know, because it's like
Yeah.
you're not gonna talk
I'll
to
agree with
MM like
that.
that, bro. You know
Right?
what I mean?
Dude, I'm surprised MM doesn't whoop up on that old boy because MM looks like he could take him. I don't know, but Butcher's a pretty bad looking fellow, though. I'm assuming they're both special forces.
Butcher is one of those guys that would just keep going no matter what.
Yeah.
Like unless he's in the ground,
He can
he's
be,
not
he's like
stopping.
he's like the Black Knight, dude, missing limbs and still going on, but holding on with
Exactly.
his
Yeah.
teeth. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. Frenchie continues speaking, telling her that whatever the Supes have planned for her, she doesn't deserve it. He slowly gets within reach of her and he unlocks the lock on the chain. Then the lock on the handcuffs. And this is a very slow motion, right? He's being just very timid. He's like trying not to move very aggressively to trigger. She looks at him for a moment, then she just takes off running out the apartment. Peace. She's out.
Yeah, she's out.
Yep. Well, it's better than being chained there.
That it is.
Yeah.
And let's give it to Frenchie because I mean Frenchie does feel something for. He doesn't want her to be found by Vought, and I think it's pretty cool that he cuts her loose.
Right. We are taken to the command room at Vought Tower. The Deep is gorging himself on unhealthy snacks and watching the news on the NNC news channel. The news story is covering his attempt at, I'm using air quotes here, rescuing his dolphin friend from Oceanland. He's eaten a box of ding dongs and he's working his way through a box of ho-hos.
Now this is the friend that this is the friend that he promised he would touch it if it'll make him be quiet.
I don't even. Why are you even mentioning that?
I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna cut that out. I don't want to think about it anymore.
I'm so sorry.
The news coverage shows him sitting in the road in front of his splattered friend. It's just like a pool of guts, and he's just sitting there cross-legged. You know, it's just.
It is so South Park again. I will not bring it up. I'm going to send you a picture and you're going to laugh.
Yeah.
And this is going to be what it's in reference to.
Okay. He changes the channel and it's Starlight going on stage to deliver her speech at the expo. And now the show goes in person to the expo. Starlight is reading her Vought written speech from the teleprompter. Huey's in the crowd listening. Starlight asked them if they knew her first public appearance was on that very stage with Ezekiel and the rest of the family. She goes on with the speech saying she wanted to share with them how she accepted Christ as her personal savior. The crowd cheers, and she goes on to say, and how his way is the only way. At this point, she stops speaking. She looks off to her left where her mom is standing. She stands that way for a minute, and then she asks the staff to cut the music, and it takes some time, but they finally cut the music, and the mom is mouthing at her, "What are you doing?" Starlight's looking at her mom, and she says, "You just want me to suck it up and do this for you?" The crowd is confused. We can hear some murmurs amongst them. Still talking to her mom, she says, "You have no idea what you're really asking. You have no idea what I've been through." She stops talking to her mom. She turns to the crowd. She says, "Every single word that I say up here, I'm reading from a script. I didn't write any of these words. I don't even know if I believe in them. I mean, I believe in God. I love God so much, but honestly, it's just how damn certain everyone is around here."
That does bother folks sometimes, the surety that some believers have. And I get that
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that you can know, but and again, this is me. I believe that you can know.
I've been wrong enough in my life to where there are very few things that I feel certain about.
I
So,
get that.
yeah.
I get that.
Mhm. When she says this, there are gasps from the crowd.
Oof.
Madeline is
Yeah,
in her office
Megan.
typing and hearing this. She's kind of paying attention. She stops what she's doing and she starts paying attention to what Starlight's saying. Starlight continues. Tickets start at what, $170? So that these people can tell you how to get to heaven? How do they know? How does anybody know? When the Bible was written, life expectancy was 30 years old. I mean, I'm not so sure you're supposed to take it literally. I also
I'll pin on that one. Sorry. I'll come back to this real quick. Go ahead. Keep going.
It also says it's a sin to eat shrimp.
We'll hit that.
What if you're gay or if you're Gandhi? You're going to hell? I mean, and if you have sex before marriage, that's not immoral. That's human. What's immoral is the guy who shoved his in my face. And the crowd is shocked. And
I love Starlight, dude.
yeah. Yeah.
And let's give it up for her, though. Dude, that's bold.
I mean, okay. Setting aside the message of the speech for a minute.
Yes.
Okay. Take religion out of it.
Yes,
The way I process this is an individual that has grown up in this environment. These are her, I'm using quotes again, people, right? These are the people she grew up with, right? She goes in front of them and has the courage to say this, knowing what the reception is going to be.
Absolutely. And the thing that, as we're going to get into this and unpack here in a minute, as we'll talk a little bit more back and forth before I get deep into this, but I'm always impressed with the fact of her bravery here and coming up here and saying this in front of people. And I always feel it. But again, the way that I was raised, if you have doubts, it's okay to express these things. But a lot of church groups don't think it's okay to express these things. They think it's a wrong thing to say. It's like, no, it's wrong to not let people say how they feel. And if they don't feel that if they think there's something wrong about it, then if we believe what we're saying is correct, we should have no problem letting people say what they want to say. And I don't.
Is the resistance to having them talk that way, is it based on the fact that they are worried people are going to convince other people to have doubts as well?
I think that's what that's what it is in a lot of places. But again, like I said, as we've discussed earlier, and as I will get deeper into it, my love of this thing that I've called apologetics. I mean, this kind of stuff is something that is someone, when Starlight was growing up, if she was really sincere in her becoming a Christian, some people should have taken her aside and said, we believe this because of X, Y, and Z. And do you understand why we feel this way? Not, I want you to feel this way because of this and because you need to feel this way. It's like, and if you have questions, please feel free, because that's the thing right there. A lot of, how most people do not want to ask questions as it is anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to appear like you don't know something. So
yes.
A lot of people will sit back and just smile and nod because they think it makes them appear wiser. For her, like I said, it's like I wish somebody would have taken her aside and given her the things I'm going to say, because no one told me this, but I didn't know better than to ask. And that's why, because she says a lot of things here. There's a lot to unpack. And I don't know if you had anything else you want to say before I try and jump through this real quick.
No, go ahead. That was the entirety of her speech, and I said, how I felt about the speech.
Well,
it touched me.
And what she says real quick in her speech about the Bible being taken literally, the Bible is meant to be taken literal. First off, the Bible is not a book. It is a library. It's a collection of 66 different books. So it is meant to be taken literal where it is meant to be taken literal. There are other places where in like prophetic stuff, that where they don't have the right word for it because they can only describe certain things, so we'll use what we know. So then it becomes figurative language, and then like we were talking about the figurative the hyperbolic language of like destroying your enemies.
Yes.
The Old Testament's full of a lot of that stuff. Now, talking about the dietary restrictions in the Old Testament, talking about the sin to eat shrimp. I don't know if you know this, but even to this day, the Jews that follow the dietary restrictions of the Old Testament live 5 to 6. They live 5 to 6 years longer than normal people do, than the Gentiles do. So they do have an average lifespan that outdates us just because of their dietary restrictions. Now, the New Testament lifted the dietary restrictions. So, it's not, it's not what goes into a man that defiles you. It's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you. The things that we say, can defile what you are.
Well, hold on. So drugs don't defile you?
Well, drugs that's different. I'm talking about foods.
Okay.
Foods. The idea of a food being impure is no longer
Okay.
thought out. There's no dietary restrictions. You should probably watch what you eat. I mean, if you want to live a healthy life. So all the dietary restrictions are lifted in the New Testament, but a lot of Jews still follow that stuff, and that's good. Like I said, it's obviously proved to be a valid diet because it keeps people alive longer. The gay question, of course, this is a big problem that Christians have a problem wanting to talk about because they don't want to be seen as haters or homophobes, And the idea of the homophobe, I've never bought that idea of homophobia personally because I'm not afraid of any homosexuals. That's what phobia is. I'm not afraid of them. I'm afraid for their soul. The thing with gayness is there's also straight immorality that's sexual immorality that's just equal. All sin is sin as far as the Lord is concerned. Lying is almost the same thing as it's all bad for him. Lying and murder are about equal. We apply levels of sin because we're humans. And I agree that she's right. What's immoral? The guy that shoved his penis in her face is absolutely immoral. And if you have sex before marriage, you should not have sex before marriage, but we're humans, people do it, but it's not going to keep you out of heaven. The Bible is meant to help us, not to hurt us. A lot of people, this is what a lot of folks don't understand. And this is the other thing about the Bible I love is that for a book that nobody's read, everyone sure has a big opinion about it. Now, I'm reading it for my 5th time. So I have a lot to say about it, but a lot of folks always have an opinion about it, but they don't seem to have read it. And this includes a lot of Christians, mind you, have not read the Bible. I go to church with a bunch of people who don't read the Bible. Let's see. And also about the dietary plague. During the Black Plague, the Jews were protected. Do you know that? They survived the Black Plague and they survived to be killed and persecuted because everyone thought they were witches for surviving the Black Plague. But their diet kept them safe during the Black Plague. Let me see. So again, we mentioned about the fact that Christianity we're seen as Luddites, but they're really, like I said, we have universities, anti-slavery, civil rights movement, orphanages, pro-women. The Bible is extremely pro-woman. I don't know why people think it's such a misogynistic book. It's very pro-woman. It's not designed to keep women down.
Do you have any specific examples for people who speak against it?
I'll give you the greatest example of all. Let me tell you, the biggest example for me for being pro-woman is in a day and age when all societies, including the Jewish societies, viewed women at taking 2 women to equal 1 man as far as testimony. If the book is such a misogynistic book, why would the women be the first people to find the empty tomb? So the women that Jesus knew found the empty tomb before the men because the men were cowards and fled. The women were very brave, and they went to the empty tomb on that 3rd day to anoint the body some more. And the women were the brave ones. They went there. They went to face the Roman guard to find them gone and the tomb opened. So that's a very pro-woman statement. Also the fact that Jesus is in his bloodline and his ancestry has 2 prostitutes in there, and also a foreign woman, which was prohibited, but we still wanted to include everyone in the bloodline that led up. So it was we made sure that had these women that were outsiders to be included in the bloodline. That's a very big pro-woman movement to me. But like I say, the women finding the empty tomb is the big one. Like I say, especially in this day and age, like I said, they wouldn't. It would take 2 women to get a guy to believe them, if even then. So they stood out the women stand out very large, in the Bible. Some of the men stand out larger, but you have some really, really powerful women in there. And again, the biggest thing that should compel us is not wanting people to suffer and to go to hell. Man, I love you guys. I don't want anyone to happen. But the thing about hell is we don't have any idea what it's like. The Bible talks about dark but at the same time it's eternal darkness but eternal fire. We can't imagine that. So it's this is where language becomes a little more figurative. But what is so bad that a writer has to say that this badness, the only thing I can equate to it is dark and fire? I don't know. That's where, but like I say, there are points where it is figurative, but I believe it to be true. And I think that's about all I have to say. I think I wrapped it up pretty quick. I believe the Bible can stand up to any scrutiny. You can examine itself.
On the pro women stuff. Yeah. So the pro women examples that you gave, what are some of the things that people use to say that it's against women? Is it like kind of the stuff where they say that a woman needs to defer to her husband or something like that? Or
but there is a lot of that stuff. There is, but the problem again is this: we fall into something where people again use verses in the Bible, and the Bible does not have any actual verses and chapters. This is something that we added about 500 years ago for navigation. But you can quote verses out of context, but there are parts that talk about a woman needing to submit to your husband. But it doesn't. But most people never follow through with the rest of that and talk about the idea that a man is also to submit to his wife. And it's also one of the most, I'm sure you've probably heard this is the most commonly quoted. Now, this is not a misogynistic thing. This is a judgmental thing, but talking about the judge not lest you be judged. That's saying that we can't judge, but we make judgments every day. That's, what am I going to wear? That's a judgment. How fast am I going to drive? That's a judgment. What am I going to eat? That's a judgment. We make judgments. If you read the whole thing in context, it's not talking about not judging. It's talking about you make sure that if you judge, that you are found clean yourself, because you will be judged in the way that you judge people. So if you're a hypocrite, be careful calling people a hypocrite, because you'll be found out to be a hypocrite. So a lot of people always pick, like I said, that's one of those things where they pick it up. What's that? Do not judge lest you be judged.
Don't stand in a glass house and throw stones.
Oh yeah. Don't stand in a glass house and throw stones. Exactly. That's not in the Bible, but it's a good proverb. Yeah. People that live in glass houses should not throw stones.
Yeah. There was another one I heard the other day. Is something, don't complain about the snow on your neighbor's roof when your doorstep's dirty. I think that's a Buddhist one, maybe.
That does sound very Buddhist. I like that.
Similar. It's all the same message, right?
Well, see, this is the thing. This is another common misconception. I'll clear up. Try to clear up real quick. Is a lot of people are also offended by the Bible's exclusive nature. It's claiming the one way. Yes, Jesus does claim to, in fact, to be the only way, and I believe that to be the truth. This is another reason why we tell people. But every other religion also claim. A lot of people think that all these other Eastern religions are very open-minded. No, every religion is mutually exclusive. They all claim to be the one way, and so mine claiming to be the one way is not an unusual claim for a worldview to claim either. But I believe that this can be backed up because of the fact it tells you to examine itself. It's the only world religion that claims that too. All other world religions say, do not question what we say. Do not question what our book says. Our book says to dig deep. And it also says that if we are wrong, we are to be more pitied than anybody. And the Bible actually does say that in there. So I think that's a pretty strong statement for the Bible thinking
why would it say that? If we're wrong,
well, this is not.
We need to be pitied more than everybody. Why would that?
Because of the fact that Paul. Now, this isn't an epistle. Now, most of the New Testament is made up from the letters of Paul to other churches, and so a lot of his letters are instructional. And they explain a lot of doctrine, because Paul was probably one of the smartest people on the planet. I mean, really, I mean that literally. He was a rabbi, one of the smartest rabbis to begin with, and then the guy becomes a Christian after persecuting Christianity actively. He becomes a believer, and so one of Christianity's greatest enemies becomes a believer. And so in his writings, in one of the epistles, when telling people about witnessing and telling them about spreading the news, and says, why it's true. And he says, and if it's not true, we are to be pitied more than most people, because, here we are committing our lives to following something that's true. Now, myself, I'm a believer of the fact that if Christianity is not true, I've lost nothing by trying to live a better life. and to try and help my fellow man live a better life and save them. Because if an atheist is right, then I lose nothing by dying. But if I'm right, it's going to be bad news for other people. So this is why we tell people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to be lost, man.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. It's a bad place. I don't want no one going there.
Yeah.
Everything else that Starlight says, I really agree with her a lot. But she did mischaracterize a lot of stuff in the Bible that is not uncommon. But I still love her for her courage and her bravery in coming out, because Starlight is, again, one of the more likable. She's the only likable soup we've seen so far.
Yeah, she is.
So, but I do love her to death. Even other than that, like I said, that's all I wanted to say about the thing.
Okay. We see the Deep, and he looks scared. He says, that's because Starlight literally is calling him out. She didn't call him by name, but she's referring to him.
It won't take long to figure that out, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And then Madeline is in her office. She has the exact same response.
Right.
Starlight pauses for a moment. She looks over at her mom, then turns back to the crowd and continues. Here's the truth. Anyone who tells you they know the answers is lying.
And I kind of disagree. I disagree with her on that. But that's, again, being a Christian, we're making a claim of truth that I believe can be verified through evidence. And so that's all I got. But I disagree. And I believe that you can know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Her quote continues. She says, and I know. I'm supposed to be this hero, idol, symbol, whatever, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
That's hard. That's a lot of weight to put on her too.
It is. She's young, man.
She's young.
She's in her 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming her and Huey are the same. I'm assuming they're the same age, roughly.
I'd say within 5 years of each other. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're both experiencing a school of hard knocks from the non-soup and from the soup life.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Huey in the crowd is really touched by the display of emotion from Starlight. He's nodding and smiling. Starlight says, I'm just as scared and confused as the rest of you. I'm done pretending, and I'm done taking any more.
Nice.
The camera goes back to the Deep, and he looks really concerned. He's kind of looking left and right in the room. This is kind of funny.
That scene.
Yeah.
But then he have food in his mouth as he's doing it to his mouth.
He's got like a ding dong in his mouth or something. He's looking left and right, all scared.
Ding dong, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great.
Starlight thanks the audience and walks off stage. Only one person in the crowd claps. It's Huey. Everyone else is in shock and they're in silence. Some of them are looking at him confused.
Yeah. I love it, dude.
Yeah.
I love it.
I commend her bravery.
I commend the bravery. Like I said, other than her mischaracterization of the Bible, I think I love her character. I love her bravery here. She's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
She's so likable, and she's such a girl next door, very likable, pretty thing. You want to believe her.
Yeah. Back in the hospital, Butcher and MM are walking through the NICU. They find an IV bag hooked up to a baby in an incubator. The IV bag is filled with compound V. It's a blue liquid. They're looking at the baby through the enclosure when the baby opens its eyes and shoots out a blue beam of energy a la Cyclops in the X-Men. Yeah, his is red, but still, same type of power. This surprises both Butcher and MM. Butcher remarks, Jesus, that's a baby soup. On a side note, what the heck kind of material did they make the walls of that incubator out of?
They must have got the guy that made Cyclops goggles in here on that job.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Right?
Yeah.
I love it, dude. Now this to say something before we get deeper in this scene, this is one of those scenes that to me is iconic of this show. It's like the opening scene and seeing him holding Robin's arms. There's something about this. When I've talked about this show to people, I've mentioned this because it's a fantastic scene.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Butcher comes to a realization. He says, chosen by God, these are made in a lab. Back at the Believe Expo, Starlight is standing alone out behind some of the tents at the expo. Huey finds her and walks up. When he greets her, she kind of jerks around, ready to fight. She's still raw with emotion from the speech.
Yeah.
Huey tells her that was a great speech. He says, I mean, come on. know your audience, but that was like Joel at the garden. That was, she starts crying, or she was crying when he walked up, and she's still crying. She says, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad. How was your quality time with Ezekiel, huh? Any more VIP tickets I can get for you? Because I'm so here for you. Huey says it's not like that. She asks if he's sure because she can get him a commemorative cup or an Ezekiel figurine or a goodie bag. That's the Ezekiel stretchy arm man.
Stretch Armstrong, yeah. Stretch Armstrong, baby. Yeah. I want one of those.
Huey says, my girlfriend died. This stops her. She looks at him for a moment and says, what? He tells her that it happened not too long ago, and he came here looking for a way to get out of the that he's in right now, and that wasn't fair to her, and that he's so sorry. He starts to choke up a little bit. He says that he doesn't think there's anything that can help it anymore, or fix it, or make it better. And everything he heard here helped a total of jack, except for what she said. He agrees that she's right. No one knows. And that's the only thing he's heard all day that makes any sense at all. And that is the God's honest truth. She smiles and apologizes to him. He says, no, I'm sorry. They hug each other. And finally, he's honest with her. You know, I feel like this episode was them kind of growing together.
And I love them together. I am a old closeted romantic. I love romantic things happening in movies or in shows I like, and so I've been wanting that with them for the whole show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, they've been pitching it that way at us anyhow, but I like seeing it happen.
Well, he messed up a couple times, right? And yes, he had to go through some trials and tribulations and realize his mistakes, and yeah.
So I like seeing them kind of come clean.
Mm-hmm. We're back in the hospital, and this scene's great. This is the one you're referring to.
This is what I meant earlier. Yeah, this is what I was referring to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Butcher is taking a sample of the compound V out of the IV fluid bag. MM warns Butcher to be careful. If he gets an air bubble in there, it could kill the child. And Butcher says, well, wouldn't that be a crying shame? Jeez. As soon as he pulls out the vial of compound V, 3 security guards with submachine guns show up and start shooting at them. In the NICU with babies around. Full auto machine gun fire.
To be fair, they are aiming higher here in a pathetic attempt not to harm the babies, but they are aiming a little higher here.
Right.
But yes, I agree. Full auto. That's when you go full auto is near the babies.
Yeah, it's great. Butcher and MM find some cover behind a pillar. Butcher tells MM to keep them busy. He comes back holding the end of a power cord. He tells MM to watch and learn. He then uses the power cord to pull the incubator containing the soup baby over to them. He pulls the baby out of the incubator and aims the baby's head at the security guards. The baby unleashes a gout of energy, cutting 2 of the guards in half. The last one's afraid to shoot at Butcher because Butcher's holding the baby up in front of him. Now they care about shooting. Now they care. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
The baby isn't shooting lasers out of its eyes, and Butcher has to shake it a bit before it does.
It's like shaking a flashlight, isn't it?
Yeah.
To get the batteries going again. It's like shake. And it's like, that's an amazing scene. I love it.
The beam cuts the head off the last guard. Yeah. Butcher says, holy that was diabolical.
It's diabolical. I love it.
He laughs and gives the baby a kiss on the head, saying he's a little beauty.
You little beauty.
Yep. Butcher puts the baby back in the incubator, saying, you done good, lad. MM is prompting him to go.
Oh, but I have to just say that, again, this watching Butcher use that kid as a laser gun, is that not one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen in a show? I don't know why.
It's hilarious, man.
It's hilarious.
So creative. Right?
Absolutely. Because you just watch these people get scythed into 2 or 3 bits. You're like, oh my goodness, that's just, and that's what would happen to you. I love that they actually kind of show that it's not clean either. It's like, It's awful messy. I love it.
To be clear, this is way more intense than the heat vision that Homelander has. This is like,
well, there's no control. It's like
like
these
a
kids are just
searchlight,
It is. It's bad. Well, because again, they've got no control. That's why you have to put them in these special incubators, because they would just destroy the whole hospital.
Yeah. As Butcher's getting ready to go, he tells the baby to keep his nose clean or he'll come back and stomp him. Love it.
It done good, lad.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't do that very well. I'll try though.
Yeah. Madeline is watching the Vought news channel on her laptop. The story is covering Starlight shocking the Christian community at the Believe Expo. This has been a tough couple days for Vought.
Yes.
They had the opportunity to be heroes with the transoceanic flight. They messed that up. The Deep goes on his little rescue mission, messes that up. Homelander and Starlight both go off script. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, Popclaw, she's not really in mainstream now, but, she's also died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Madeline gets a security alert on her laptop. She has a camera set up in the hallway, and she can see that Homelander is staring at her through the wall. She says, "I see you. I know you're watching me. You've been out there quite a lot lately, always watching. So why don't you just come on inside? You afraid of me?" He scoffs and opens the door to her office and stands in the doorway. She prompts him to come in. He walks in, and the door closes behind him. Put on your seatbelt, buckle up, because it's about to get real uncomfortable in here.
Extremely uncomfortable.
All right.
All right. Bring it.
He stands in front of her desk. She stands up, takes off her glasses, and closes her laptop. She asks him if she hasn't been paying him enough attention lately and asks if he's lonely. She goes on to say that it must be hard feeling so alone. And she apologizes. She says she's sorry, but he cannot give a speech like that. He cannot be bad. He has not been a good boy.
No.
He has been a bad boy.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really creepy. Yeah, he is. He's been a bad boy. I've been a bad boy.
Was that
sorry,
Mr.
Hanky? From
Hanky?
some Bugs Bunny. No, that's that's some old Bugs Bunny. Some old Looney Tunes. I don't know which one, but it's old Looney Tunes.
All right. We can see that her words are affecting him. He seems to be getting emotional. She walks over to the couch and sits down, and she unbuttons the top two buttons of her shirt. She tells him to come over to the couch. He sits down, and she puts his head in her lap. She begins petting his head, telling him that he has to be good, and he has to listen to her, and then they can both get what they want. When she says this, she kind of opens up her shirt a little bit more just to kind of show him, Sure. And then this is like the super weird part. She puts two fingers in his mouth and he starts kind of like nursing on them. And she tells him he's her good boy. This whole thing's too much. I don't even know what to think of this behavior.
It's hard. Yeah.
I can't tell if she's simply doing this to get him under control after his outburst or if she's into it. I honestly don't know.
I think it's just all control with her.
Mm-hmm.
I may be wrong, but that's my opinion of it, at least.
Yeah. I don't even know. Frenchie's running down an alleyway. It's a dark alleyway. It's nighttime. In front of him, he sees the silhouette of Black Noir in front of a billboard as he jumps down from a roof and kind of runs across in front of Frenchie. And Frenchie ducks behind this dumpster, thinking he was unseen. He waits for a minute and then he reverses course and goes back the direction he came. As he's going, Black Noir slams down, crushing the top of this car. He lands on its roof. And then he begins walking very menacingly towards Frenchie.
Yeah.
Frenchie begins to backpedal, and as Black Noir begins to give chase, something slams into him from the side with incredible speed, knocking him into the dumpster, and it deforms the dumpster. Like he got hit hard.
Yes.
It's the girl, the Japanese soup girl.
Yeah.
She nods at Frenchie, and he looks at her for a moment, then runs the other direction. Black Noir gets up and faces off with the girl. And finally, we get to see him do something in this show. This is episode 5. We finally get to see some action with him.
Yeah.
He has a large number of knives at his disposal. As they engage, she is absolutely ferocious, but for all of her ferocity, she can't make up for the damage he's putting into her with the knives.
Yeah.
At one point, she jumps up in the air and he throws knives at her and they hit her. And he ends up slashing her several times. Ultimately, he ends up pinning one of her feet with a knife to the ground through her foot. And then this is the really bad part.
Well, think about that real quick, though. It's like, see, how strong? You've got to be strong to throw a knife to stick it through concrete. He's got her pinned to the ground. I mean, that's a lot of strength.
He is very strong.
Yeah, he's real enhanced, dude. He's pretty bad.
Yeah, to be taking the hits from her, he's got to be very resilient.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen her punch through people last episode.
Right. Well, he does kind of have armor on, and she is kind of slashing him a little bit, but he's got some metal plates, it seems, that she can't get through in some areas. After he pins her foot to the ground, he slashes her across her torso deep. It's like 5 inches deep. It's really bad. And the noise it makes is terrible. Yeah.
It is nasty, isn't it?
Yeah. And then he leaves her dying on the ground and just runs off. We can see that she's bleeding out. And the camera stays on her. And Frenchie walks up to her. He came back. He thinks she's dead. She's stopped breathing. It's incredibly brave or stupid of him to come back because Black Noir is probably still in the area. I'm surprised Black Noir didn't come back and get him, but maybe his only goal was to kill the girl. Maybe.
May have been.
Yeah.
May have been.
Frenchie takes off his jacket and he begins to cover her with it. And just as the jacket is about to cover her face, her eyes open and she takes a breath. Frenchie is surprised. He looks down and he can see that huge wound, the one that's like 5 inches deep, is closing up. This girl's like X-23, man. Their healing powers.
Quick. Yeah. That was real quick.
Yeah.
Really impressive.
She's looking at him and grabs his hand. This kind of surprised him a little bit because it's kind of like the first contact they've had. And he holds her hand and says it's a miracle. And he says that she's a miracle.
I dig that.
That is the end of the episode.
Well, again, a lot going on this episode. Great episode. Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we drop off here?
No, I'm just real excited to bring on number 6, man. That's a lot to talk about. That's 6 is a fun one. I think the show really starts applying a lot of heat.
It's pretty good so far.
Time. Well, great show, man.
All right, thanks. We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.